Chapter 51. What on earth is going on? If the research team was attacked by a group of Pokémon, they should have fled in one direction. Even the extremely experienced Ishida was puzzled by the chaotic situation at the moment, and he said that he couldn't understand it at all. At the moment, the most difficult decision facing everyone is which way to go. Should everyone go together or explore separately? Please follow Tetsuya and John. Ajin, you and I are in a group. Then, Ishida released another majestic Pokémon, Charizard. With the blazing fire on Charizard's tail and the light of the flashlight, it can't be said that the vision will be very poor. But, Captain Ishida, didn't you say before that it's best not to release large Pokémon? The geological conditions here have been carefully checked by Sun Rock, and it won't be unable to bear the weight of large Pokémon for the time being. Moreover, if there is any unexpected situation, Sun Rock and Charizard can react quickly. Ishida patiently explained to John. At this time, Metagross was released by Tetsuya again, and Meowth sat on Metagross's head in an instant. Go, big wolfhound. John didn't ask any more questions, and then released the big wolfhound. Captain Ishida, let the big wolfhound explore the way ahead. If we need to gather, with their excellent sense of smell, I believe we will be able to reunite soon. Thank you, you are very thoughtful, John. Ishida said to John with gratitude, and then took the lead to stride towards the passage in front. Gia, which way should we go? John asked Gia's opinion, and Gia was in a dilemma. Then he reached out and took out a coin from his pocket. If it's heads, choose the left side, and if it's tails, choose the right side. How about that? At this time, Gia still wanted to joke with John, but it seemed that there was really no simpler and more direct way to decide than this. Seeing John nod in agreement, Gia threw the coin high into the air, and then caught it again steadily in his hand. He slowly spread his palm to John. Left, let's go. Okay. Hariga ran to the left without hesitation, and the Raijin followed closely. I didn't expect that Zhen actually chose to stay. When John and Gia were the only ones around, John couldn't help but sigh. He could tell from the performance of the 3 Pokémon released by Zhen that Zhen's strength was not actually strong. Actually, this is not difficult to explain. Zhen is an orphan. He did not grow up in an orphanage, but in a village near Fuyan town. Although the village is relatively backward, Dr. Taniguchi's home is there. Because of this, Zhen has been helped by Dr. Taniguchi's family since he was a child. Dr. Taniguchi is one of the researchers who disappeared this time. No wonder, when he saw me for the first time, he sneered at me and looked like he disliked me for being a drag. John suddenly realized that it was because there was someone he cared about. However, along the way, John did not notice anything unusual about Zhen, so he really couldn't associate this relationship. Why didn't you say it earlier? John touched his head and said with a slightly embarrassed look. The identity of an orphan, the situation of being without a father or a mother, makes Zhen feel inferior, so. I understand, in fact, I am also an orphan. Ah. After hearing what John said, Jai looked at him in astonishment. To be honest, he really couldn't believe that John was a child who came out of an orphanage. Most of the ruins in this world were built for specific purposes. Some were built to suppress ancient Pokémon or evil spirits, some were the sleeping places of mythical beasts, and some were just the tombs of ancient kings. Of course, some were built specifically to confuse future generations. Jai, do you think Regis Chiru will be in here? The deeper he went, the more gloomy the atmosphere around him became. If it weren't for the Thunder Elves, I believe this must be a dark environment where you can't see your hand in front of your face. When not talking, even the breathing of the other party can be heard clearly. Including the rapidly accelerating heartbeats of the 2 people. Have no idea, but I hope it's not there. Jai smiled bitterly and shook his head. It's not that he has no interest in Regis Chiru, but he knows that he has no strength to subdue it. Do you feel strange? Along the way, except for Zubat and others, we don't seem to encounter any other wild Pokémon. After walking for a while, Jai became more and more confused, and then asked John. I also found out. Suddenly, a strong vibration broke out from somewhere. Is it an earthquake? John and Jai quickly lay down, and Metagross immediately floated above their heads to provide them with protection. No, it doesn't look like an earthquake, but it looks like a fluctuation caused by the collision of special moves during the battle. Jai quickly analyzed it, and the two looked at each other and thought of the only possibility at the same time. Not good, Captain Ishida and Ajin. After walking for a long time, the big wolfhound walking in the front suddenly grinned. Big wolfhound, what's going on? Ishida quickly noticed the abnormality of the wolfhound, and quickly shone the flashlight forward. What appeared in front of him was a dark purple Pokémon. It has 2 legs and a short, pointed tail. Its eyes are like 2 bright red gems, and there are some thorn-like protrusions on the back. At the same time, the corners of its mouth are curved, with a smile that seems to know everything. Gengui. Gengui actually appeared in this place, and from its breath, this Gengar is quite powerful. After being discovered, the corners of Gengar's mouth rose at an extremely exaggerated angle, as if its mouth was torn apart. Solar Rock and Charizard quickly stepped forward and blocked Ishida and Jin firmly. Go, Maizena! Ajin quickly threw out a humanoid Pokémon with a sky blue body and milky white ring patterns on its arms. To deal with Ghost-type Pokémon, of course, you have to use Psychic-type Pokémon. This is the deep-rooted knowledge that Ajin has learned. Chapter 52. Ajin, don't do it yet. Ishida's eyes never left Gengar, and he stretched out his hand to stop Jin who was about to attack. After seeing Gengar's weird smile, Ishida shuddered all over, and he knew that he must not act rashly at this time. Gengui, we just came in to find someone, and we don't mean to disturb your life. Gengui laughed creepily after hearing it, and then took small steps in the air, walked to the wall, and made way for Ishida. Thank you. Ishida thanked it, and then pulled Jin forward immediately, quickly passing Gengar. The front of him suddenly opened up a lot, as if it was the center of the ruins. I don't know when the surroundings quietly lit up a little fire, which gave the originally dark and dull space a rare light. A little further forward, a stone door appeared, and Ishida immediately walked forward quickly and pushed hard, but the door did not move at all. Just when he wanted his Pokémon to try to push it open, he felt the door move. He immediately stepped back and watched the stone door slowly open. After the stone door was opened, a man walked out. Ishida's pupils shrank instantly, because this man was wearing the clothes of Team Rocket. How could a member of Team Rocket appear here? After seeing his face clearly, Ishida's face was extremely ugly. Because this person, he had seen the information issued by the Alliance, was one of the highest-ranking cadres of Team Rocket, Lambda. It seems that you know me. Lambda saw Ishida's expression, then you should know that no one can survive under my hands, right? Sun Rock, Charizard. It just so happens that this place will not hinder Charizard's flight. Why are you Team Rocket here? Ishida took out another Pokémon ball, go on, strange. Ajin stood behind Ishida and shouted. Team Rocket, what did you do to Dr. Taniguchi? Lambda was disdainful of replying to Ajin's words. He whistled and 2 double bullet gases appeared beside him. Lambda, are you here to capture Registalu? There's no need to ask so many questions to a dead man. Lambda's words were full of disdain. His contemptuous eyes seemed to be looking at an insignificant ant. He didn't take Ishida seriously at all. Such an arrogant attitude instantly ignited Ishida's anger. Charizard, use Jet Flame! Ishida shouted angrily. Charizard felt the anger of his trainer, looked up to the sky and roared angrily. With a flap of powerful wings, he flew into the air. It opened its mouth and violently sprayed a blazing flame at Lambda, which was like a violent fire dragon, whistling and sweeping away. Double bullet gas, destroy the death light. Lambda remained calm, with a smile that caught people's hearts all the time, and ordered lightly. One of the double bullet gas responded quickly, bursting out a powerful energy from its body, and a dazzling destruction death light faced the sprayed flame. In an instant, the two collided, producing a deafening roar, and the surrounding air seemed to tremble with this powerful force. However, the destruction death light did not dissipate in the collision, and continued to attack the fire-breathing dragon with powerful power. The fire-breathing dragon was not afraid, flapping its strong and powerful wings, flexibly turning and moving in the air, and narrowly avoided the attack of the destruction death light. The big wolfhound sensed the approaching danger, quickly jumped behind, and roared vigilantly at the air. Another creepy laugh came. Ishida turned around quickly and saw a purple figure passing by him like lightning, bringing a gloomy airflow. Ishida was sweating instantly. He was also an outstanding trainer, but he couldn't even see the movements of this Pokémon clearly. It wasn't until it stopped in front of Lambda that Ishida saw clearly that it was the Gengar who had just made way for them. Ha ha ha! Lambda laughed wildly, I was originally on guard against others, but I didn't expect another group of people to break in. Gengar just thought it was fun. Ishida had to admit this. If Gengar had attacked him just now, he would definitely have no power to resist. Zhen, you and the big wolfhound go back along the way and find Tetsuya and John. This is not an opponent you can deal with. Ishida whispered to Zhen. But Dr. Taniguchi and the others. Zhen said anxiously. Go. Ishida roared, his forehead veins popped up on his body. Seeing this, Guili quickly carried Zhen on his broad shoulders and ran quickly to the back, and the big wolfhound quickly followed. Bang! After hearing a dull sound, Ishida immediately turned his head and saw that Gengar had run to the back without knowing when. A sly light flashed in Gengar's eyes, and he swung a shadow punch. Guili was unable to dodge and was hit hard by the fierce shadow punch. His strong body trembled and he fell to the ground with Zhen. Ishida was anxious and was about to turn around to rescue, but he saw Lambda commanding the double bullet gas to attack again. For a moment, he was in a dilemma. Since they didn't know whether the road ahead could lead to Ishida and Zhen's location, John and Tetsuya had no choice but to return along the road they had just walked. Fortunately, the body of the giant gold monster could accommodate both of them. Meowth sat steadily on Tetsuya's shoulder, while Houndoom and Thunder Pokémon stood on each side of the Metagross's arm. It seems that Captain Ishida has encountered an extremely powerful opponent. Could it be Registalu? John frowned, his tone full of worry. It's hard to say. We still have to speed up and rush over. Tetsuya's face was solemn and his fists were clenched. On the Metagross, John and Tetsuya chatted casually, trying to relieve the increasingly tense emotions in their hearts. Not long after, they returned to the intersection just now. Houndoom twitched his nose, and with his excellent sense of smell, he quickly and accurately identified the correct direction. In fact, in such a dark and closed cave, even if you clearly remember which road it is, you are always afraid to be completely sure in your heart. Claustrophobia. In fact, everyone may have such potential symptoms to some extent, but many people's performance is not obvious. However, once this symptom occurs, the whole person will fall into extreme anxiety and feel uneasy. There will also be a deep distrust of the brain's thinking and judgment. At the same time, the loud sound of the ultimate move collision is getting closer and closer to them. Chapter 53. Although Ishida knew that Lambda was one of the top leaders of Team Rocket, he never expected that even the two Ghastlies had reached the Quasi-King level, and Gengar was even a King-level Pokémon. Moreover, it was unexpected that his strongest trump card was actually a seemingly ordinary Ratna. At this moment, he had not yet released Ratna, and he only had Charizard, a Pokémon, struggling to support. Snake, use Poison Tail! Zhen shouted hoarsely, and at this time he only had one snake left to fight against the King-level Gengar alone. His other Pokémon had been toyed with by Gengar and lost their combat ability, including John's Wolfhound. At this time, the Wolfhound was lying quietly on the ground. Fortunately its belly was still rising and falling regularly, and there was still a weak breath of life. Ishida had already fallen into a desperate situation of being caught in a dilemma. The front was firmly blocked by Lambda and could not break through, and Gengar was staring at him from behind. The negative emotions of decadence quickly spread in his mind. Then, Ishida gritted his teeth, shook his head fiercely, and shouted angrily. Charizard, use Dragon God Dive! Charizard, as his old partner for more than 20 years, has long reached the Quasi-King level, but unfortunately, due to limited qualifications, he has never been able to go further. Charizard roared to the sky, and the blue flames on his body rose instantly, rushing towards Lambda fiercely like a burning meteor. Use self-sacrifice attack, Smoke! Lambda gave the order without changing his face. The two double bomb gas cooperated tacitly, one of them used self-sacrifice attack without hesitation, and took the powerful Dragon God Dive of Charizard. The powerful impact caused the double bomb gas to be knocked out instantly, drawing an arc in the air. The other one quickly released a large cloud of dense smoke, which instantly filled the entire space, blocking the sight of Charizard and Ishida and making it difficult to see clearly. Charizard, use the fierce wind to blow away! Before Ishida finished speaking, he was slammed into the wall by a figure as fast as lightning. This powerful force made him feel like he was hit hard, and he couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of bright red blood. Rata! Rata! After Charizard flapped its wings and blew away the smoke, Ishida opened his blurry eyes with difficulty and finally saw the Pokémon that knocked him away. This is a Rata with a body mainly yellow-brown and a butter-colored face to the abdomen. It looks ordinary, but it is the hidden trump card of Lambda. This is one of the most common Pokémon in the Kanto region, but this one is a Rattata that has reached the king level. After seeing the tragic experience of his trainer, Charizard angrily used the dragon claws on Rattata. The sharp claw wind whistled out, as if to tear the air apart. But it never thought that a seemingly ordinary Rattata could reach such an incredible speed. Rattata dodged the dragon claws at a dazzling speed, and then quickly counterattacked without hesitation. Even without Lambda giving any orders, it had already used the Volt attack on its own. A Rattata actually knows the Volt attack? That is the ultimate move of the electric Pokémon. The extremely powerful attack instantly hit Ishida's Charizard. After Charizard suffered this blow, its already wounded body shook, and it fell from mid-air, lost consciousness, and collapsed to the ground. The powerful strength displayed by Lambda directly made Ishida realize that the person in front of him was not something he could contend with. Now he had no Pokémon to use. Metallica, use Illusion. Harriga, use Big Word Explosion. John and Jeff finally arrived in time. Metallica used Illusion on Gengar, and the powerful mental power instantly enveloped Gengar. Houndoom immediately jumped down from Metagross's hand, quickly condensed huge fire energy in his mouth, and used the amazingly powerful Big Word Explosion on Rattata. Gengar flexibly turned his body to avoid it, and did not forget to stick out his big tongue at Metagross and make a face. Then he patted his butt and returned to Lambda triumphantly. Rattata was even more direct, and instantly sprayed a water ball from his mouth, which collided with Big Word Explosion accurately, and directly offset the damage of Big Word Explosion. That's the water wave. John, this Rattata is very powerful. Tetsuya frowned and threw the Pokémon ball again. Lizard King appeared in front of him, and Meowth and Metagross were on guard on the left and right, guarding against the enemy. I know. John didn't need Yao Jai's reminder, was also clear. He immediately ran forward and checked the condition of the Wolfhound. Fortunately, it just lost its fighting ability. John immediately put the Wolfhound back into the Pokémon ball, and then saw Ishida half lying on the ground. He hurried over and said with concern. Captain Ishida, are you okay? Run if you can, the one opposite is the highest cadre of Team Rocket. Ishida's bones were broken several times and he couldn't move anymore. He said to John with a wry smile. Team Rocket. John immediately looked at the man opposite, his face full of disbelief. Why? Why is there Team Rocket here? John, you take Captain Ishida and Ajen and go first, I will stop Team Rocket. How can this be? John really wanted to leave, but at this moment he really didn't know how to choose. He was afraid of death. He had finally survived 15 years and had just started a new life. No one wanted to die in vain. Seeing Ishida's desperate look, he knew that the rocket team on the opposite side was definitely not something he could handle. Want to leave? Look behind you. Lambda mocked them and reminded them. Aber? When? With the help of John, Ishida endured the severe pain and stood up with difficulty, and found that there was an Aber behind him. Looking at this powerful aura, it must be another king-level Pokémon. It still held Agen in its mouth, and then bit off his body and swallowed half of it. John laughed desperately. Now he had no sympathy or sadness, but regretted it in his heart. If he had known earlier, he should have left with Junko and Xiao Feng. 3 king-level Pokémon, and a quasi-king-level double bullet gas, one was defeated by Charizard. With such a powerful lineup, only a king-level trainer could have the possibility of breaking through. John. Chapter 54. An hour ago, the wind and sand had slowly stopped, and the sky had already turned a little white, as if a huge black curtain had been quietly lifted, revealing the glimmer of dawn. Junko and Xiao Feng did not leave, after all, Xiao Feng's thunder Pokémon was still with John and the others. After coming out of the ruins, they informed the rangers of the details they knew inside, and then stayed in the temporary shelter built by the rangers. At this moment, there was a huge roar of propellers stirring the air in the sky, and 2 helicopters roared to the outside of the ruins under the precise positioning guidance given by the rangers. The helicopter slowly approached the ground, and the strong wind raised by the propeller blew up a strong wind and the sand and stones flew, making it impossible to open your eyes. The helicopter slowly opened the hatch 10 meters above the ground, and then dropped several sturdy rope ladders inside. Then, several trainers quickly climbed down the rope ladder one by one, and one of them was a heavyweight player with great weight. What's the situation inside the ruins now? The leading man gently brushed off the dust on his body and asked gently. Seeing this man, Junko's eyes instantly lit up like bright stars, full of surprise and admiration, but Xiao Feng's performance was relatively calm and normal. A researcher has been killed. Captain Ishida thinks that our psychological pressure is a bit too heavy, so we have chosen to give up this rescue mission. Hearing the man's question, Junko answered dejectedly like a deflated ball, with frustration and helplessness in her voice. Don't worry, after all, you are just trainers of the Alliance, not official positions. As long as you respond to the support, the specific situation is irrelevant. The man comforted Junko and Xiao Feng in a gentle tone, then turned his eyes to the team of forest rangers and asked in confusion. Didn't you go down to support? It's like this, the time for our captured Pokémon has come, and with the Pokémon we have now, there is really no way to complete the exploration. The man obviously knew something about the forest rangers' combat method, so he didn't continue to ask. Anyway, it didn't matter to him. The main purpose of his coming this time was just for the legendary Pokémon. Can you please help lead the way? The man turned his head to look at the trainers behind him, and saw that they were almost all ready to go and fully prepared, and then immediately asked Junko and Xiao Feng. Okay, we'll lead you there right away, but the places we explored before are very limited after all. It's okay. After arriving at the place where you separated, we have our own unique way to find them. With the experience of entering the ruins for the first time, Junko and Xiao Feng behaved completely differently the second time. Perhaps it was because the trainer behind them was so powerful that they felt completely safe and didn't have to worry about any accidents. Jia roared angrily as he watched Zhen lose his life. Although he could understand John's despair now, he knew that giving up meant completely losing the opportunity. He and John didn't want to die either, and they were eager to live. A crossbat appeared quietly on Lambda's shoulder at some point. Just now, this little guy told me that someone else was coming. I thought I would be prepared in case a strong opponent came. Who knew it was two rookies? Lambda gently stroked the body of the crossbat and laughed softly, his eyes full of disdain. Then, he looked at the Metagross and couldn't help but feel happy. Metagross, not bad, I should be able to get a lot of money by selling you. With his current status, he has no shortage of Pokémon, but a quasi-god level Metagross can allow him to squander for a while. Captain Ishida, this place should be about to collapse, right? Jia turned around and asked, and Ishida still had a bitter smile on his face. I hope it will collapse. If I can drag a top executive of the rocket team to die before I die, it will be a worthy death. John, let's give it a try. John also understood that there was no way to retreat now. He took a deep breath, forced down his despair, and then took out two Pokeballs. Go, Gyarados, Bank IRAs! Roar! As soon as Gyarados and Bank IRAs came out, they let out a burst of angry roars. They had already seen clearly the outside in the Pokeballs. Critical situation, full of anger at the moment. Tisk tisk tisk. Lambda clapped his hands, with a proud smile on his face. Very good, I have to rest for 2 months when I go back. Gyarados, Banjuras, Metagross, Lizard King, which one is not a valuable Pokémon? As for being afraid that they will not obey orders? That is absolutely impossible, the technology of Team Rocket is not boasted. John and Jet are no longer surprised by this. Every time they can meet people with bad intentions, and the intentions of these bad guys are often exactly the same. It's just different this time. The opponent is a King-level Pokémon trainer. There are 3 King-level Pokémon and 2 quasi-King-level Pokémon on the scene now. No matter which one, John and Jet's Pokémon have little chance of winning alone. The two looked at each other, and John was the first to shout. Bangalax, use all your strength to use Earthquake, Gyarados, Houndoom, cover. You too, cover Bangalax. They had the same idea. Being buried, at least there was a glimmer of hope. If they fought Lambda head-on, they would only die. Bangalax stomped hard on the ground, and the strong vibration made the people and Pokémon present unstable. However, strangely, the ruins were intact. Ha ha ha. Lambda laughed proudly, it's not so easy to collapse here, otherwise I wouldn't be here with you. Damn. They were very careful all the way, but they didn't expect that here, they didn't even have the ability to wreak havoc and create chaos in order to survive. Lada's expression was cold, and he rushed over like a flash of lightning, and his 2 sharp front teeth emitted a chilling cold light. Before the 6 Pokémon could formulate an effective reaction, it transformed into a flash of yellow and instantly appeared in front of the Lizard King. Chapter 55. Megalodon, use the petrification skill. Gia shouted loudly. Lizard King, move at high speed. Meowth, attack, use crazy grab. The three Pokémon here quickly took action and staged a fierce melee with Ratatouille. John decisively ordered Gyarados to use the extremely destructive Destruction Death Raid towards the Abermoth behind, while Bangiras and Houndoom were on full alert and guarded in front of John. Tetsuya's Metagross stood firmly in place, with 4 eyeballs constantly turning, trying to capture Rada's movement trajectory. However, Rada's speed was too fast as a ghost. Even if the Metagross's brain calculated at high speed, it still could not accurately capture and lock Rada's position. Seeing this, the Lizard King quickly used the seed machine gun, and the seeds containing energy bombarded the ground like raindrops, instantly destroying several dents and splashing soil. Unfortunately, such intensive attacks did not have any effect on Rada. Rada easily avoided all the seeds with its amazing speed. As for Meowth, who was wearing long boots, he kept attacking Rada's afterimage, waving his claws wildly in the air. Then, Rada made a clever feint, which caused Meowth to misjudge. Rada took the opportunity to counterattack quickly, and Meowth was knocked to the ground with multiple injuries and bloodstains on his body. The situation on John's side was not optimistic either. Houndoom had just performed the big character explosion, and the huge flame character had not yet fully formed before it was instantly pierced by the powerful destructive death light of the double bomb gas. Houndoom had no time to dodge, and completely endured this powerful blow. His body was knocked back several meters, and he fell to the ground in pain, gasping for breath. Gyarados was about to attack Arbor, but was hit by the venom sprayed by Arbor first. The venom quickly spread over Gyarados' body, and its scales began to smoke. Its expression was distorted in pain, and its body was shaking constantly. It was obviously greatly hurt. Bangilas tried to use the large amount of dust that appeared around to interfere with Jengar's actions, but Jengar could easily shuttle freely in the dust, and the dust had no effect on it. Jengar appeared behind Bangilas from time to time and attacked with Shadow Fist. Although Bangilas was tough, he gradually showed signs of fatigue under Jengar's continuous attacks. Then John threw out Toucan again, and Tetsuya also released all the Pokémon. Unfortunately, the trainer level of the two of them was too low, and there was no way to command so many Pokémon at the same time. Their strength was already much weaker, and now they couldn't even exert half of their power. John, Tetsuya, you can go if you can. Ishida looked at the backs of John and Tetsuya, endured the pain all over his body and stood up with difficulty, slowly walked behind them and put his hands on their shoulders. Everyone wanted to leave, including John and Jet. If there was a chance, John might have given up on the others and escaped alone. But it was impossible. There was no possibility of escape. His Pokémon was already wounded, while the opponent's Pokémon was almost intact. At this time, John realized how serious Qinli's water was when he fought against him before. What does this feel like? Earthquake. Suddenly, another small stone hit John's head. It didn't hurt, but it caught John's attention. Lambda also felt the strange movement and showed a wretched smile on his face. He had waited too long, otherwise he would not have chosen to play with John and others here to kill time. Lambda, did you do this? Hearing Ishida's voice, Lambda didn't pay any attention. The place where they were was the center of the ruins, and the vibration came from below. The vibration became more and more intense, and a crack appeared at the feet of John and others. The crack track filled with light continued to expand, and the buzzing sound of shaking was endless. At the same time, some gravel continued to fall, as if the whole earth was about to crack completely. Feeling the intensification of the movement, Lada and other Pokémon quickly returned to Lambda's side, but their eyes had put away the previous ease, full of vigilance and fierceness. In the center of the ruins, the ground suddenly collapsed without warning. The huge crack was like a huge portal to the unknown torn open by a mysterious and violent force, as if it led directly to the bottomless and endless abyss underground. A mysterious Pokémon made of brown rock pillars slowly stretched out its huge body, and its long arms, which seemed to be made of rock, pressed the ground vigorously. Every time it exerted force, sand and stones splashed, and it was difficult to move. It tried to break free from the dark underground. Its bulging shoulders were like jagged mountains, its bat-like hands contained endless power, and the jagged rock spine on its back seemed to be a deep mark left by the years. Its appearance was like a storm that shook the world, triggering a shocking power. The sandstorm that had been rampant in the entire ruins began to tremble under the impact of this powerful force. The flying sand and dust lost their power and floated in the air, as if time had stopped at this moment. John swallowed hard, and he subconsciously turned his head to look at Lambda, secretly guessing in his heart that this Pokémon might be the target that the other party had been looking for. As expected, Lambda's eyes were completely attracted by the scene that had just appeared, and he had no time to care about them. Perhaps it was because the appearance of the Pokémon underground was too sudden, causing him to be deeply attracted by the scene before he had time to deal with John and others, as if the whole world was left with this powerful existence that slowly crawled out from the ground. "Gia, are you okay?" John lowered his voice, with a tremor that was difficult to conceal, and whispered to Gia. "The Pokémon underground is about to wake up," I heard its voice. Gia's face, in the midst of tension, actually showed a trace of imperceptible joy. As if to confirm Gia's words, a deep humming sounded again, like the interweaving of machinery and rock. This sound seemed to be a call from ancient times, and it was like the roar of a sleeping giant, instantly attracting the eyes of the two people to the center of the ruins like a magnet. Regirock? How could it be it? Ishida saw the body made of rocks slowly crawling out, and couldn't help but screamed out. "Where's Registralu?" "Ha ha ha!" Lambda laughed wildly. "Where is Registralu here?" Chapter 56. Megalodon, speed up! Junko and the others, who had been in the ruins for quite a while, also clearly felt the strong vibration. The man sitting on the Metagross took the lead and headed forward. With the constant loud noise, he didn't have to bother looking for the specific direction. "I don't know what happened to the Thunder Pokémon." Xiao Feng was full of regret at this time, regretting why he left the Thunder Pokémon behind. The fierce fighting sound coming from the depths of the ruins was enough to prove how tragic the battle was. What he didn't know was that the Thunder Pokémon had already run away, and it was shivering in some dark corner at this time. Junko had been praying silently for the people inside, and desperately walked deeper into the ruins. "Ramda, did you capture Registralu?" Regilock had completely crawled out, and surprisingly, the shocking crack on the ground was miraculously closed again. It completely ignored the people and Pokémon present. It had been trapped underground for who knows how long, and now all it wanted was to have a good meal. "Rada, use the water wave." At Lambda's command, Rada's petite body instantly burst out with strong energy, and a huge water ball was sprayed over. Gulp! An angry cry rang out, and Regirock instantly sensed the danger and roared violently. When it saw a water ball coming towards it, its anger burned fiercely, driving huge power, and suddenly spit out a destructive death light with amazing destructive power, instantly dispersing the water wave. Afterwards, the destructive death light continued to have its power, and it directly penetrated the stone wall, causing some rocks to fall off and smoke and dust to fill the air. What a powerful force! John watched the fierce battle from the side and was deeply shocked by Regirock's powerful attack. What the earthquake with all the strength of Bank Iras could not do, it easily accomplished with the residual power of the destructive death light. Then, Regirock came back to his mind and remembered why he was here. He quickly scanned the surroundings and finally locked his hostile eyes on Lambda. After all, the direction of the attack just now came from him. "John, Tetsuya, don't let Lambda succeed." Ishida's voice was full of anxiety, and John knew that when Lambda finished his work here, it would probably be their turn to suffer. As for why they didn't take the opportunity to escape, Uberman had been behind them, blocking the way back for their group. His Gyarados and Houndoom had also been taken back into the Pokémon balls. The only Pokémon that could be used were the Toucan, which had not yet appeared, and the scarred Gyarados. The baby dragon had no fighting ability. If it encountered a powerful attack from the opponent, it might lose its life immediately. Tetsuya's situation was equally bad. If it weren't for Regirock's sudden appearance, he might have been wiped out. At this time, he only had Metagross and Iron Palm Warrior struggling to support him. Rada and Double Bomb Gas quickly approached Regirock. Regirock keenly captured Double Bomb Gas's position, waved his hand, and directly used brute force to hit Double Bomb Gas hard. Gurgle! The angry Regirock suffered another blow from Rada's alloy claw and let out a painful wail. "Metagross, use your telekinesis to restrict Rada's movements." Tetsuya hurriedly called out to help. Metagross's eyes instantly burst into blue light, only restraining Rada for a moment. But Regirock seized this fleeting opportunity and threw a heavy punch, smashing Rada's body to the ground, directly smashing a huge hole. "Kid, you pissed me off, Gengar, Abra, I'll leave them to you." He. Kiabo. Looking at the Gengar floating in the air, they all clearly understood that this Gengar had been playing tricks on them from beginning to end, and still hadn't used any truly powerful moves. After Lambda's shout, Gengar fiercely used a Shadow Ball towards John. Bank IRAs ran over without hesitation, intending to use his huge body to help John resist this fierce attack. Bank IRAs, use Rock Block on me. Hearing John's order, Bank IRAs did not hesitate at all, because it trusted its trainer immensely. Several huge stone pillars rose from the ground in an instant, quickly blocking the menacing Shadow Ball. However, the powerful impact still blew the rock into pieces. After John's body was hit by several pieces of rubble, Bank IRAs quickly hugged John and used his back to block the remaining falling rocks. Then, Bank IRAs turned over with John in his arms and used a highly destructive destruction raid towards Gengar's position in the air. Gengar kept flashing his body, then stood on the ground, and a Shadow Punch attacked Bank IRAs from the front. Bank IRAs had a certain resistance to the evil attribute, and just roared in pain, but John took the blow head-on. Go, Toucan, use the fierce wind. John's whole body was in pain, and finally threw Toucan. As soon as it came out, it flapped its wings vigorously, and the strong wind restricted Gengar. Bank IRAs, do you have any evil attribute tricks? After Bank IRAs evolved, John had not had time to sort out its data properly. It nodded, then opened its mouth. Gengar immediately broke free from the shackles of the fierce storm and appeared in front of Bank IRAs in an instant. A Shadow Claw emerged from Bangira's shadow and hit Bangira's abdomen. It and John fell out in a mess and rolled on the ground for several rounds before stopping. Although Bank IRAs protected it and most of the damage was borne by it, John's consciousness became blurred. Zhe also saw John's critical situation, but he himself was also in danger. After Ishida was blown away by the aftermath of the battle, his life and death were uncertain, and now seeing John had fallen, the bloody mouth of Abra was approaching. Boscodora, Rainbow Cannon. Metagross, use Illusion Light. John seemed to see the arrival of support in a trance. Gengar and Abra were both blown away by this sudden attack, but it seemed that no serious damage was caused. A familiar-looking man appeared in front of John, and beside him, there were 3 Pokémon. Armored Bird, Boscodora, and the White Metagross. Chapter 57. The illusion of the Metagross accurately hit the Gengar that rushed towards John, repelling it. And Boscodora saved Tetsuya's life from the mouth of the Arbo monster. The Armored Bird quickly flew in the air, ready to wait for Daigo's next instruction. Daigo Zifuki is the former champion of the Feng Yuan League and the son of the president of Devon Manufacturing Co., Ltd. Zifuki. As a champion trainer of steel attributes, if he had not resigned from the league because of his love for ore, one of the 4 kings might have been replaced. After seeing him, John resisted the sleepiness. After all, ordinary people may hardly see such a top-level competition in their lifetime. Bang Uila still had strength, and stood up holding John, and slowly walked towards Daigo. Are you all right? Seeing the tragic situation of the battle, Daigo first checked Ishida, who fell to the ground, and found that he was still breathing, so he was relieved. It's okay, thank you Mr. Daigo. After stepping into the gates of hell, Jia couldn't help it anymore, and sat on the ground, breathing in the fresh air. If you are tired, take a nap first, John. At this time, John's forehead was bleeding a lot of bright red blood, his eyes were a little red and swollen, most of his clothes were torn, and his arms and feet were scratched. Seeing John's miserable condition, Jia said worriedly. I'm fine, Mr. Daigo, thank you for saving my life. John sincerely thanked Daigo, and Daigo said softly. Let's subdue Team Rocket first. Zifuka Daigo? I didn't expect you to show up here. Lambda was as if facing a great enemy, put away his previous contemptuous expression, and stared at Daigo. Come back all. The Pokémon that had been scattered and fighting on their own before returned to Lambda one after another. Unlike before, they all had injuries to varying degrees, including the powerful Lada. Gurgle. After losing his restraint, Regirock angrily released sharp stone blades in the direction of Lambda, and countless sharp stones shot at Lambda like a rainstorm. Forkbat, use the power of awakening to knock it down. Forkbat quickly released countless glowing spheres, which collided violently with the sharp stone blades, instantly producing a series of huge explosions. After the smoke dissipated, Regirock's figure had long disappeared. I surrender in this round. Can you let me go? Lambda raised his hands towards Daigo, and his wretched smile appeared on his face again. You are not a member of the Alliance anyway. Keep fighting. The rookies behind you have no chance of survival. Don't let him go. Mr. Daigo, Ajin, and the researchers may have been killed by him. Jia shouted loudly, and Lambda just smiled indifferently after hearing it. They broke in by themselves. It has nothing to do with me. What about them? Daigo also knew their rescue mission this time and asked immediately. I don't know. Maybe they were eaten. Don't you think so, Abo monster? Abo monster spit out the snake tongue and made a strange sound. Lambda immediately took out a remote control. Guess why you never met wild Pokémon again? Your rocket team is really technologically advanced. Even Daigo, the top rich second generation in the Hone region, couldn't help but envy him. It seems that he should be controlled. I just don't know what the purpose of the rocket team is. If it is for capture, there is no need to run to such a place, and the transportation work is extremely troublesome. Is it to open the mechanism of the ruins and unseal Regirock? Bingo! You got it right. I'll give it to you now. Daigo turned his gaze to Regirock. Because of the attack just now, it was fighting with Gengar and Rattata again. Where is Regiskairu? The purpose of Daigo's trip was largely for Regiskairu. As a Steel-type trainer, he was fascinated by not only ores but also Steel-type Pokémon. No comment. If possible, he didn't want to give up Regirock, but now the advantage was no longer on his side. He decisively pressed one of the buttons on the remote control in his hand, and a strong explosion came from the side of several people. You actually installed high explosives. Daigo has never acted rashly. He is waiting for the trainers behind him to arrive and protect Joe. Well, they are. But now it seems that it is completely unnecessary. With this preparation, he can only think of the evacuation route first. Mr. Daigo. The trainers behind also arrived at this time, and seeing the rocket members in front of them, they threw out their Pokémon. Junko and Xiaofeng also rushed over. After seeing the conditions of several people, she came to John first, checked his condition, and then took out the medical kit from the backpack and began to bandage John simply. Junko, I'm fine, Captain Ishida's condition is more serious. Ishida was certainly not forgotten. He was picked up by a trainer's crocodile, and Xiaofeng was constantly looking for his Raikkonen. Jia, where is my Raikkonen? Xiaofeng was a little anxious. He had already looked around, but still couldn't find it, not even its body. I'm sorry, Xiaofeng, the Thunder Elf ran away while we were fighting. Jia explained immediately, and Junko found something wrong, as if someone was missing, and that annoying Ajin was gone. Jia, where is Ajin? Ajin is dead. Ah! John saw that they couldn't fight anymore, so he couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep in Benjila's arms. So Junko turned to ask Jia, but after hearing the answer, she covered her mouth in surprise. It was hard to imagine that the partner who was still together a few hours ago was gone suddenly. Suddenly seeing the half-lifted limbs, Jia shouted, "Don't look over there!" But it was too late. Only the upper half of Ajin's body was left, and the part below the waist was gone. Seeing this scene, Junko was so pale that she couldn't speak. Mr. Daigo, what should we do now? The trainers that Daigo brought with him were all trainers who were dependent on Devon Manufacturing Co., Limited and grew up with the company's investment. Regardless of Daigo's strength, for this reason alone, they would follow his lead without hesitation. Chapter 58. You take the wounded away first, I'll cover them. Daigo didn't look at the trainer, but quickly released his remaining Pokémon. After a dazzling white light flashed, Lucario, Magneto, and Diglett appeared majestically on the battlefield. Lambda, I'll wait here with you, let them retreat first. He. Do I still have the capital to negotiate? Daigo's words made Lambda sneer. He is not like those useless members of Team Rocket. If he can, he will blow up the ruins without hesitation. It's a pity that there are not so many explosives, he just arranged them in this area. I am enough. Daigo's words were loud and heavy. But the opposite Team Rocket Lambda was a complete lunatic, and he pressed a button without hesitation. BOMM. This time the explosion was closer to them, and the strong impact caused a lot of rubble to slide down. Daigo made a prompt decision and shouted at the top of his voice, "Everyone evacuate!" Ha ha ha! Lambda held the remote control of the explosives in his hand, fearless and not afraid at all. Having stayed in the cave for a long time, he was more familiar with the situation here than anyone else. It would only take a few minutes for him to leave here. Anyway, he couldn't win in a head-on fight, but he just wanted to make this game more exciting and fun. Looking at Daigo opposite him, looking at his unhappy and timid look, Lambda became more and more arrogant, and his arrogant laughter echoed in this space. But, do you really think I came here alone? What do you mean? Daigo frowned, his heart trembled suddenly, and a bad premonition came to his mind. The signal here is too bad, but you can try the latest communication device developed by our rocket team. Gengui slowly came to Daigo with the communication device. As the picture appeared, Daigo's pupils continued to expand. What caught his eyes were more than a dozen helicopters with big R printed on them, and dozens of members wearing rocket team uniforms. And the place he was in was the temporary shelter for forest rangers where he had stayed not long ago. It had not been long since he left, and the rocket team had already found them. At this time, all the forest rangers were arrested and tied up one by one. When I notified them just after these rookies came in. According to the practice of the Alliance, if an important person is missing, they will not send only such people of strength. Sure enough, I waited for you. So, you launched the attack after we entered the cave. Daigo's face became more and more ugly. This madman's plan was so meticulous that he was now in an embarrassing dilemma. So, what will you choose? Sacrifice everyone, capture me, and then seek credit from the Alliance? Or let me go and save all of you? Lambda had slowly pressed the switch of the stone door behind him. Daigo clenched his fists tightly, and even though his knuckles turned white due to the force, he never gave any orders. Let's go. While retreating, pay attention to the surrounding situation to prevent collapse. After saying that, he immediately put away the extra Pokémon and sat directly on the body of Metagross. The rest of the people did almost the same thing. BOMM. A series of deafening explosions sounded, and even the well-mannered Daigo couldn't help cursing. He turned and looked at Lambda's direction, only to see Lambda sending a message through the air. Judging from his mouth shape, he should be saying I am Team Rocket. Since Pokémon battles are extremely popular in this world, it is not uncommon for Pokémon to be injured. Therefore, whenever Pokémon are injured or sick, the anxious trainers will rush them to the Pokémon Center so that they can recover. It can be seen from this that the Pokémon Center can actually be regarded as a special hospital for Pokémon. Speaking of hospitals, since Pokémon can go to the Pokémon Center when they are injured, will humans also go there when they are injured or sick? The answer is obviously no. Humans naturally have medical institutions dedicated to serving them. However, in this wonderful world, humans are special. Those minor illnesses often heal naturally without treatment. Only when they encounter serious illnesses or are seriously injured will humans go to the hospital for professional treatment. Even in the case of the prosperous and bustling Kanas city, there is only one human hospital established by the Alliance. In the inpatient department of the only hospital in Kanas city, in Ward 808 on the 8th floor. It has been a whole day since John and Ishida were sent here. At this moment, both of them are wrapped tightly in white gauze. John's head and both arms are wrapped in gauze, while Ishida's body is wrapped, but there is no obvious damage to his limbs. In a corner of the ward, there are several bouquets of beautiful flowers, and no one knows who sent them. However, in the ward, apart from John and Ishida lying on the bed, only Junko and Jet are left to take care of them. When John slowly opened his eyes, Ishida had actually woken up for a long time. John was still a little confused when he just woke up. He blinked slowly and tried to adapt to the slightly soft light in the room. Junko was the first to notice that John had woken up. A look of surprise instantly appeared on her face, and she walked briskly to him. John, you finally woke up. How do you feel? John opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice. I'm fine. I just feel a little heavy. How is Captain Ishida? Ishida turned his head and forced a smile on his face, trying to make himself look good. I'm fine, but you need to rest more. Tetsuya, help me, I want to sit up. He then realized that the beds here were the same as those in his previous life, all with medical functions. Tetsuya immediately responded and made a few simple operations at the end of the bed. John's back began to slowly rise until it was about 50 degrees, forming a comfortable semi-sitting position. Junko thoughtfully poured John a glass of water, but John's arm was injured and he couldn't hold the cup by himself, so she could only feed him carefully. Can I ask what happened after I lost consciousness? After drinking the water, John immediately asked the question in his mind. Chapter 59. Junko and Tetsuya's faces instantly showed hesitation, and their eyes turned to Ishida. It's okay, you guys talk. Ishida's condition seemed particularly strange, as if he was shrouded in a layer of haze. John felt confused. Did something else unexpected happen? Let's talk about your situation first, John. Your injuries are relatively optimistic. In addition to the broken arm, you are in a coma caused by a violent blow to the head, but don't worry, you need to stay in the hospital for a few days. And your Pokémon, they are now receiving treatment and recuperation at the Pokémon Center. You can rest assured that when they are fully recovered, Miss Joy will arrange for someone to send them over. Tetsuya tried to comfort John in a gentle tone. His Pokémon and Ishida's were in a similar situation, and the degree of injury was quite serious. How long have I slept? John looked up at the sky outside, and asked with a hint of confusion in his eyes. Not long, just 1 day and 1 night. I know, then. Gia sighed helplessly, and Junko quickly said, Captain Ishida, I'll push you outside to get some fresh air and walk. Okay. Junko quickly pushed out a brand new wheelchair from somewhere, and Ishida sat on it with a slightly slow movement. Looking at his extremely lonely back, John felt that the development of things had far exceeded his initial expectations. What happened to Captain Ishida? John looked at the door of the room and asked Tetsuya in confusion. John, except for Captain Ishida, all the rangers who acted with us unfortunately died. Hey! John opened his mouth in disbelief, his eyes widened, and then turned his head and shook it gently. Weren't they always outside the ruins? How could it be? Yes, who would have thought that Team Rocket would be so cruel? They surrounded the place and took the forest ranger hostage, which forced Mr. Daigo to evacuate. When we finally left the ruins, the Rockets had already fled and brutally killed everyone. Gia became more and more angry. He swung his fist and smashed the small table next to him. The half-cut apple was instantly crushed by him, and the juice splashed. Then, did we fail in our mission this time? Well, although the responsibility is not ours, it is indeed a failure from the results. The two sighed almost at the same time, and Gia then picked up the fruit knife and peeled another apple for John. By the way, where is Mr. Daigo? He accepted the commission of the Alliance and was responsible for clearing the Rockets in the Hone area. The Rockets really angered the Hone Alliance this time. Even in many cases, the Alliance would not do things too extreme, but this time, it was the Rockets who went too far. The 4 Heavenly Kings and the current champion Mikali were urgently summoned. Except for Genji who went out to sea and Furong who was on a mission, the other 2 arrived and started an emergency meeting. However, all this has nothing to do with John. His current life is to rest and recuperate, and then continue special training. Because of his contact with the King-level Pokémon trainer, John's desire for strength has become stronger. Unfortunately, his foundation is too weak and the resources he can obtain are extremely limited. But fortunately, he has a good talent for Pokémon, which also gives him a glimmer of hope on the road to pursuing strength. Tetsuya and Junko have not left for the past 2 days. In addition to Junko, John, Tetsuya, and Ishida have already formed a deep friendship. For Ishida, John, and Tetsuya have never abandoned their companions in danger. Such qualities are worth cultivating by the Alliance. However, after 2 days of getting along, John did not see Ishida's family come to visit. Later in the conversation, he learned that Ishida was a lonely man, without a wife and children, and just plainly guarded the safety of the forest. Hello, John. A familiar voice sounded, the door of the ward was slightly pushed open, and then a little head poked in. Xiaosheng, why are you here? Xiaosheng's appearance made John's face instantly bloom with a happy smile, at least this proved that he was not alone, and he also had friends who cared about him. Dad said that you were injured, so our family came to visit you together. Where is Mr. Kyunli? John looked outside the door, and soon, Mitsuko and Xiaoao appeared in the ward with fruits in their hands. Dad went to work, so we found out your hospital address and came to visit you. Xiaosheng couldn't wait to sit next to John. John, where is baby Long? Xiaosheng. Mitsuko came over with a stern face, picked up Xiaosheng, and then sat down next to John's bed. John, Xiaosheng is this impatient person. He hasn't slept well for several days because of baby Long. Mitsuko looked a little apologetic, and looked at John, who was still wrapped in bandages, tenderly. She had also heard about John's story. This child had survived a near-death experience. However, this incident made the couple trust John even more. There would be almost no problem entrusting Xiaoao to John. By the way, Captain Ishida, let me introduce you. This is Mr. Qun Li's wife Mitsuko, and his daughter Xiao Ao, and son Xiao Sheng. After hearing John's introduction, they realized that there was a person half lying in the ward next door, reading a book. Mr. Qun Li? Is it Qun Li, the gym trainer in Chinjua City? Ishida immediately put down the book in his hand and greeted him warmly. Hello, Mr. Ishida, thanks to you for taking care of John. No, ma'am, it was John who saved my life. The two of them were praising each other, which made Xiao Ao and Xiao Sheng feel a little embarrassed. However, after Xiao Sheng confirmed that John's injury was not serious, he came up again. John's Pokeball had actually been sent back a long time ago, but he had no way to take care of it at the moment, so he had handed it over to the breeding house under the alliance and would pick it up when he was discharged from the hospital. After hearing the news, Xiao Sheng was like a deflated ball. Xiao Ao knocked him on the head directly. Baby Dragon is John's Pokémon. But I held it. Xiao Sheng covered his head and pouted, looking reluctant. Chapter 60. Hello, who are you? Junko got 3 meals in the cafeteria, walked into the ward and saw the 3 strangers. She repeatedly confirmed that she had not read the room number wrong, and then walked in again in confusion. We are here to visit John. Junko, they are my friends, and this is Aunt Mitsuko, their mother. John, it seems that you have made friends too. Mitsuko smiled at John and Junko. From the interaction between the two, it can be seen that they should be partners who met while performing the mission together. Hello. My name is Junko. After Junko greeted politely, she put the meal on John and Ishida's table, and sat aside, but did not move her chopsticks, just looked at them curiously. Where is Tetsuya? John remembered that they went out together, so why did only Junko come back? Gia was called away by the alliance halfway. So that's how it is. It seems that if you want to know what happened, you can only learn from Gia. After all, Daigo and the others only know the second half. Only I, Ishida and Gia participated in the whole process and are still alive. And now Gia is the only one who can move freely. Then John's eyes swept over Mitsuko and the other 3. It seems that Qun Li's arrival is probably for this matter. Aunt Mitsuko, have you eaten? Seeing that the eyes of the 3 people were focused on him, John immediately changed the topic and asked about family matters. No, but don't worry, we are all familiar with Kana's city. Xiao Ao knows clearly what delicacies are around here. Mitsuko covered her mouth and laughed, which made Xiao Ao blush all of a sudden. Mom. Okay, let's go out for dinner, John, we'll come back later. If you want anything to eat, contact Xiao Sheng. Mizuko was relieved to see that John was fine, and she could go out to solve the problem of lunch. John, which breeding house is your baby dragon? I want to go over and see if it still remembers me. Xiao Sheng was pulled away by Xiao Ao, and his voice gradually became smaller until it disappeared. By the way, Junko, has Xiao Feng left? This is the first time John has thought of Xiao Feng in the past few days. They have hardly communicated throughout the whole process, and John has hardly noticed him. Well, the Thunder Spirit is missing, and he is still waiting there. He will leave only after the ruins are dug through and it is confirmed whether the Thunder Spirit is still alive. It's my problem. Ishida said with a little self-blame on his face. No one forced Xiao Feng to make the decision. It's not your fault. John's opinion was different. Captain Ishida, you don't have to take all the responsibility on yourself. Ishida smiled bitterly. He really had no fault. After all, no one expected that the senior cadres of Team Rocket would be in the ruins. I've decided. After my injury heals, I will apply to the League to become a Pokémon investigator, investigate the lawbreakers, and bring them to justice. At the same time, revenge for my partners. This sentence has always been hidden in Ishida's heart, and he will not let anyone express it easily. By the way, let's just talk about me. What are your plans for the future, little guys? Ishida put away his emotions just now, turned his eyes to John and Junko, and asked seriously. I want to do special training first, then complete the trip to the next home league conference and participate in the competition. As for what happens later, I haven't considered it carefully yet. John recalled the scene on the ship before. When Yoshida found him, he said that he wanted him to join his battle club. He also had a preliminary plan in mind. He would visit after the league meeting. If all conditions were good, he would join. Of course, the premise was that he could win the league championship, so that he could increase his bargaining chips. This year, I only participated in the gorgeous competition. I will still focus on this direction in the future. Junko shook her short black hair in a chic manner, and said confidently in her eyes, John, do you want to travel together? Well, I have promised Aunt Mitsuko and others that I will travel with Xiao Ao. John said slowly with a bit of apology on his face. Junko heard this and immediately raised her hand generously and said with a smile, then let's work hard in our respective chosen fields. Okay. John responded vigorously, and finally stretched out his hand and shook it tightly with Junko. Junko released a lot of confidence to herself from the beginning. Kindness, when she was targeted by Azhen, she stood up without hesitation, and took care of herself without any resentment in the past few days. In his heart, he had long regarded Junko as a close friend, of course, just a friend. Although this young lady dressed in a neutral style and looked like a boy, in fact, she was still a little girl inside. Otherwise, just a head would scare her so much that her face turned pale as paper in an instant. However, the final facts were enough to prove that her original choice was indeed a wise move. When facing unknown adventures, sometimes, you really can't be too blindly confident. Appropriate retreat is also a wise way to survive, especially in this world full of dangers. After Mitsuko and the others finished shopping, they had nowhere else to go for a while. Kyunli's meeting had not yet ended, so they had no choice but to return to the hospital. Time passed quietly until night fell, and the deep darkness gradually enveloped the earth. Surprisingly, Kyunli actually returned with Jia. However, Kyunli's face was slightly distressed, and his brows were slightly furrowed. It seemed that the burden entrusted to him by the alliance was really not light. After recuperation, John's body had recovered and he was able to move freely. In the evening, after obtaining John's permission to go out, Kyunli brought his family and John to a restaurant near the hospital. The restaurant was brightly lit and bustling, and the aroma of food wafted from the store, tempting people's appetite. Several people entered the private room one after another. In order to take care of John's physical condition, the thoughtful Mitsuko also specially ordered a few more relatively light dishes. John, how is your feeling this time? After returning the menu to the waiter, Kyunli began to ask John about his feelings in this emergency call-up mission with a serious look. However, looking at Xia Sheng's appearance at this time, he straightened his back and stared at John without blinking, as if he was the one who listened most seriously. Chapter 61. I'm too weak. John had a bitter face and showed a forced smile helplessly. Kyunli shook his head at John and said earnestly. No one can be a strong trainer at the beginning, including the 4 heavenly kings, who have gone through hardships step by step. I know, but the gap in strength is too obvious. Amuda's Pokémon can even exert the strength of the Heavenly King level and fight independently without his orders. Then do you think that the Heavenly King level Pokémon that grows purely in the wild will become more powerful if they cooperate with trainers? Faced with Kyunli's question, John fell into deep thought, and he didn't even pay attention to the tempting aroma of the food on the table. Yes. Then, John said affirmatively. Kyunli put down his chopsticks, nodded slightly, and then asked. Why do you think so? Because this is the meaning of the existence of trainers. Trainers can learn a lot of knowledge, including attribute restraint, the use of special moves, and the flexible use of Venus and the characteristics of Pokémon. Only when trainers can maximize the strength of Pokémon themselves, can they challenge higher-level monsters. Very good, but John, you are only half right. If the Pokémon have lived in the wild for many years, they have formed a consistent way of fighting. At this time, even if they recognize you as a trainer, they will sometimes hesitate about your instructions. Let's take a tribe as an example, the wolfhounds, whether hunting or challenging the leader, they mainly use their bodies to fight, and ignore their own special moves. So, when they come into contact with the trainer's fighting method, they can't adapt to it for a while. John held his chin and thought seriously. He could understand it, just like playing competitive games. When you are used to playing heroes with simple operations, you will not be used to heroes with high operation difficulty. Obviously, they all deal the same damage, and heroes with high operating difficulty do test your skills more. However, after playing for a long time, you will find that your upper limit is much higher. I understand, Mr. Kyunli. At this time, only when you get along with your Pokémon for a long time and develop a deep bond with them, not only will the Pokémon trust your judgment, but you will also unconditionally believe that your Pokémon can do it. Kyunli clapped his hands at John and looked at him with satisfaction. I have to say, John, you have a high level of understanding. I have read Tetsuya's story about your battle against Lambda. It is your luck to survive in his hands. Kyunli, let the children eat first. Looking at the dishes on the table that have not been touched, Mitsuko said to Kyunli with some dissatisfaction. Haha. Kyunli laughed dryly twice, watching Mitsuko pick up the dishes and just want to take out the bowl to take it, but Mitsuko skipped Kyunli and picked up the dishes into John's bowl. Then, Kyunli awkwardly picked up the dishes himself. John, eat more. Thank you, Aunt Mitsuko. John pretended not to see Kyunli's actions and directly ate the food in the bowl. What else? What else? Xiao Sheng obviously didn't listen to enough, which was normal. This knowledge was something that he couldn't touch in school, so he was naturally unsatisfied. Usually at home, Kyunli wouldn't tell him these things. He often asked the apprentices in the gym for advice, but their knowledge level might not be as good as his. Mr. Kyunli, do you mean that Lambda's Pokémon are actually used to his instructions, and in battle, they also fight in the same way as before with Lambda? After a small meal, John said the answer he thought of. Yes, your future direction is to enter the Alliance system, right? I have this plan, but it's too early now. Faced with Kyunli's sudden question, John seemed calm and didn't hide anything. Then you don't need to think so much now. You just need to know that you are still young and you have to believe that your upper limit is very high. The most important thing now is to improve your own command ability and the strength of Pokémon. I understand. Thank you, Mr. Kyunli, for your guidance. Today's meal was the most satisfying one for John in recent times. There were 8 dishes on the table. Although Mitsuko told him to eat light food, John couldn't help but eat heartily when he thought about going back to the Wilderness Canyon and having to eat simple meals every day. John is not a person who pursues a luxurious life at present. He has been trying to spend all his money on Pokémon. Joel, what are your plans after you are discharged from the hospital? The meal has been finished, and there is a tea room in the private room. At this moment, several people are sitting in it to drink tea and digest their food. I still plan to go back for special training. 20 days later, I will set off for Chinjua City. Xiaoao, when the time comes, we will go to Dr. Odaka to get your first Pokémon. After a cup of strong tea, John also told his plan, but Xiaoao seemed a little uninterested. On the contrary, Xiao Sheng had a strange look on his face, and his eyes were rolling around, as if he was thinking of something. That's good. The wild is the place where a growing trainer can improve his strength the most. Kyunli poured tea into John's cup, and then winked at him. John smiled and nodded. I should go back to the hospital soon. The nurse told me to rest early. John, I'll take you there. It's just right. I need to consult with Ishida about the situation when I go back. Kyunli slapped his head, stood up immediately, and said to John. What a poor acting. Xiaoao looked at Kyunli's exaggerated appearance and couldn't help complaining. Xiao Sheng also stood up and said, I want to go too. Xiao Sheng, you promised your mother that you would not delay your father's work. Mitsuko knew that these two people had something to say. Since she couldn't say it in front of them, she naturally wouldn't ask, and she also stopped Xiao Sheng by the way. Why is this? Xiao Sheng lay listlessly on the table, and instantly became like a deflated ball, without any strength. John patted Xiao Sheng on the shoulder. I'll take the Pokémon back tomorrow. Didn't you say you wanted to see the baby dragon? Okay. John is the best. Xiao Sheng immediately became excited and danced with joy. Kyunli touched Xia Sheng's head lovingly. Okay, Xiao Sheng, Dad and John are going to the hospital. When you want to go back later, call the Pokémon Center. Chapter 62. After leaving the restaurant, John followed Kyunli's steps and came to the door. A black business car had been waiting quietly for a long time. Long time no see, John. The car window slowly lowered, and Du-Won's beautiful face appeared, smiling at John kindly. Hello, Miss Du-Won. John responded to her politely. John glanced at Kyunli, and saw Kyunli nodded slightly to him, then opened the door of the business car without hesitation, and bent down first to walk up. Seeing this, John immediately ran 2 steps, followed Kyunli and quickly got in the car and sat down. The space at the back of the car was very spacious, with 2 rows of seats facing each other, and there was a small table in the middle of the seats. Not only Du-Won was there, but Daigo was also in the car. Today, Daigo was dressed very formally, with an exquisite suit that perfectly set off his noble temperament, while Du-Wan was wearing an elegant dress and pink stockings on her feet, which made her look particularly charming. "Mr. Daigo, I am very grateful for saving my life." After John stood up and bowed deeply to Daigo, Daigo smiled kindly, "You are welcome. As a trainer who is brave enough to fight against evil forces and would rather die than retreat, your life has not yet come to an end." Then, John carefully sat next to Qunli, facing Daigo and Du-Wan. He leaned aside curiously and asked in a low voice, "Mr. Qunli, what is this? Do you remember the high explosives used by Lambda?" Before Qunli could reply, Daigo asked John expressionlessly. John nodded heavily, "I can't figure out why the ruins, which had no effect on the earthquake of Bang Iras, were destroyed by explosives. Because there is a seal on the ground, if I'm not mistaken, Regirock should have been sealed underground before, right?" "Yes, we witnessed with our own eyes that a huge crack suddenly appeared on the ground of the ruins, and Regirock slowly crawled out of that crack." John's words were also told by Tetsuya at today's alliance meeting. Regirock is now missing, and so is Regiskelu. However, we suspect that it has been captured by Lambda. As a person who loves Steel-type Pokémon very much, Daigo can't help but feel a little angry when he thinks of the terrible treatment that Regiskelu will soon suffer. "Mr. Daigo, actually, I still don't understand what's the point of you telling me all this?" John said curiously. Logically, he was just an insignificant minion, so he shouldn't let a champion trainer complain to him, right? "John." Qunli spoke at this time, "You should have noticed that you don't encounter wild Pokémon along the way. Only the Zubat tribe that happened to go out to hunt and return to the exit of the ruins. If it was Team Rocket, did they capture them all?" John asked hurriedly. "No, they are all dead. Last night, we dug into the center of the ruins, which is the area where you and Lambda fought. He captured all the wild Pokémon inside the cave and used them as sacrifices to serve as the key to awaken Regirock. All dead." John opened his mouth slightly and looked at Qunli in disbelief until Qunli nodded heavily and confirmed it. "Also, we found the target of your mission. It should be that when Lambda woke up Regirock, he happened to meet a researcher who entered the ruins. In order to kill time, he started a game of hunter and prey. In the end, the bodies of the researchers were scattered all over the ruins. The business car has been driving smoothly on the road. There are not many vehicles on the road, and it soon arrived at the destination." John has been silent and did not speak again. He saw through the car window that this is a magnificent club. The bright lights make the whole building shine. "Master, we have arrived." The driver's voice sounded clearly in the car, and then several people came out of the club. They opened the door respectfully. Dahu, Du-Wan and others got off the car one by one. John looked curiously. Such a high-end and luxurious place, John, who has lived 2 lives, is the first time to enter. It turns out that people in this world, like in the previous life, also like to choose to come to these places when talking about things. In fact, the world of Pokémon seems to be almost the same as the original world except for the Pokémon. Television, computers, cars, airplanes, ships, everything is available. Even people living in big cities are busy every day. Not all some people have Pokémon. In addition to those who are afraid of Pokémon, there are also those who cannot afford to raise Pokémon. John came to a reception hall of Devonco, Ltd. Led by a waiter, the 4 of them soon came to Daigo's room. It was filled with large and small steel Pokémon figurines, and there were a bunch of photos of Daigo and his Pokémon hanging on the wall. Even the wine on the wine cabinet was printed with various steel Pokémon patterns. "John, you grew up in an orphanage, right?" Daigo asked first as he sat down. Du-Wan took the main seat and began to brew tea skillfully. "Yes." John responded lightly. Anyway, his identity information had been registered in the Alliance, so it was not difficult to check. "I want to invest in you, what do you think?" "Invest?" John stood up in shock and looked at Daigo with a puzzled look. "Yes, I am very optimistic about your potential. If you don't get enough resources, maybe your progress will be very slow, or you will stop at the gym level trainer level and will never be able to improve. Then what do I need to pay?" There is no free lunch in the world, and John still understands this truth. After hearing John's words, Daigo was stunned at first, and then couldn't help laughing. "Why don't you ask what you can get first? Or are you very confident in yourself?" "I am confident, and I have plans for my future, so if there is a conflict, I have to think about the issue of trade-offs." Not only Daigo, Kyunli and Dujuan looked at John in surprise. You just need to hang under Devon's name and put on Devon's label. As for whether you want to enter the league or be officially employed by Devon, it's up to you. John, I think it's okay. Yes. Kyunli and Dujuan interrupted at the right time, which made John seriously doubt whether these two people were prearranged agents. Chapter 63. To General, Mr. Daigo. John picked up the teacup, took a sip, and immediately raised his question. You only have one gym-level Pokémon now. Strictly speaking, you are still an elite trainer. Devon is not so poor that he needs an elite trainer to save the situation. As long as you reach the Quasi King level, even if you are a trainer we invested in, you will still be Devon's guest of honor. That is to say, when I need to pay, I have already reached the level of a Quasi King Pokémon trainer, right? John finally understood. It seems that they are casting a wide net. As long as one trainer among 100 people reaches the level of a Quasi King or King Pokémon trainer, they will make a profit. Because they will directly label these trainers, and in the future, he will be a trainer from Devon. This identity can allow him to grow rapidly in the early stage, and in the later stage, it is time to pay. As long as Devon is in any danger, John must come forward, otherwise, he will become an ungrateful and white-eyed wolf in this alliance. The final destination is either to leave the alliance and become a wandering trainer, or to join the evil forces and oppose the alliance from then on. However, this situation is almost impossible to happen. After all, they will first examine the character and talent before investing, rather than just looking at one item. To put it bluntly, they are businessmen, and although Daigo is a champion-level trainer, it is only a matter of time before he takes over Devon. He also needs to cultivate his own power. After all, a company as big as Devon is not just one person who has the final say. I see. John nodded to himself, and Kyunli asked with a smile, John, what do you understand? Nothing, Mr. Daigo, can I go back and think about it? Daigo nodded, yes, and Tetsuya's situation is also suitable for Devon's investment. He is considering it like you. What happened next was no longer something John could get involved in. However, they did not avoid John, perhaps in their eyes, John had already been regarded as their own. The Rocket's actions this time not only angered Daigo, but also humiliated the Hone Alliance. Because of this, Daigo is now fully cooperating with the Alliance to completely eliminate the Rocket's branches and members in the Hone region, leaving no one behind. In this operation, not only the champion Mikali, the evil attributed 4 Heavenly Kings Kagetsu, the ice attributed 4 Heavenly Kings Bonnie, but also the 8 gym trainers in the Hone region participated. In addition, the police and investigators of the entire Hone region also went out to jointly launch an unprecedented joint operation. Since the location of the accident was within the jurisdiction of Kana's city, an action meeting was held here, and Kyunli rushed here for this reason. As a gym trainer in Kana's city, Du-Wan fought side by side with Daigo, who was also a local. When everything was over, it was already late at night. Daigo arranged for people to send John and others back. Mr. Kyunli, you also think it would be better for me to join Devon, right? In the car, John asked Kyunli without caring about the current occasion. Kyunli nodded without hesitation, which was actually the original intention of bringing John here. He has always had a deep friendship with the president of Devon Co., Ltd. As the only heir to President Zifuki, Daigo is indeed outstanding in his own strength, but he has very few people available. When Daigo asked him about John's situation, he had already guessed Daigo's intention. That's right, in addition to talent, trainers also need a lot of financial support. Otherwise, how can you carefully cultivate your Pokémon? Although it is said that effective exercise can be carried out in the wild, if there is a lack of nutritional intake and the strain cannot be compensated in time, it would be putting the cart before the horse. Kyunli nodded heavily and revealed his thoughts without reservation. Finally, John spoke out all the doubts he had in his heart for a long time. Mr. Kyunli, you have always cared for me. Do you also want to invest in me? No. Kyunli's face was calm, and he said in a light tone without any hesitation, it's just that I rarely meet a trainer with great potential, and I want to help you. What's more, Xiaoao will embark on a journey with you soon. Only if you are strong enough can you protect her from harm. Mr. Kyunli is really outspoken. John smiled bitterly helplessly, but there was no resentment in his heart. In this world there is no goodwill without reason, nor is there malice without reason. Many things are based on the existence of common interests. In this way, John felt more at ease. At least, the decision he made would not damage the friendship with Kyunli's family. It seems that you have made up your mind. Seeing the tangle on John's face gradually dissipate, Kyunli gently patted John's shoulder and asked. Yes, I am just a child who came out of an orphanage. It's just that I have been lucky recently and have met powerful partners. Otherwise, I am afraid that I would not even be qualified to stand in front of you. John looked directly into Kyunli's eyes and said with a smile, but even now, it seems that I still don't have the qualifications, haha. Don't underestimate yourself. Shiba, the fighting king of the Kanto region, also received investment from others and eventually became one of the 4 kings of the region. I believe that you also have such potential, and you may be able to go higher and further than Shiba. Kyunli's expression seemed more serious. Of course, he was also sincerely considering John. In the early stage, Devon would allocate funds every month, and John could apply for anything he needed, even Pokémon. As for how much he could get in the end, it depends on how much Devon values him. Back in the hospital, Zhe also communicated his ideas with John, and he agreed to Devon's investment in him. Many of Devon's research are closely related to the Alliance, and Devon's technology is also urgently needed by the Alliance. Therefore, Devon and the Alliance reached a cooperation. In name, it belongs to the Alliance, but in fact, it still belongs to a personal industry. In summary, this is not out of their original intention to join the Alliance. Perhaps in the eyes of President Zifuki, he is in a high position in the Alliance, so he may be able to assist Daigo more effectively. After all, Daigo is not suitable to stay in the Alliance. His hobbies and interests are destined to make him need to travel around the world. Chapter 64. The next day, John's promise was not fulfilled after all. Just because Xiao Sheng and the others were taken back to Qinjue City by Kyunli early in the morning. The Alliance's action has been launched, and Kyunli stayed for John for one night. After waking up, he contacted the vehicle and hurried back to Qinjue City. Since Kyunli did not mention when to leave, John foolishly waited for Xiao Sheng for a long time, and finally only waited for Xia Sheng's complaining call and the request to take good care of the baby dragon. John's body has fully recovered. Seeing Ishida's discharge from the hospital, he couldn't wait to start packing his luggage. At noon, the 4 of them, John, Tetsuya, Ishida, Junko, gathered together for a meal. After leaving each other's contact information, they began to go their separate ways and walked firmly towards their respective goals. John ran to the breeding house as soon as possible. This was his first time to set foot here. The Pokémon was raised here by Tetsuya when he was in the hospital. Relying on the Pokémon Navigator borrowed from Kyunli, John walked along the bustling streets, gradually moving away from the bustling and noisy downtown areas. The Pokémon Navigator was quite similar to the navigation in his previous life, but the only drawback was that it did not provide the distance and estimated time required, causing John to walk until dusk before slowly arriving at the place called Chongsheng Breeding House. Although the name is not very colorful, the breeding house covers a really large area, and is surrounded by many insect-type Pokémon as patrol guards. No wonder it is far away from the city. There are really few people who have such strength and courage to open such a large breeding house in the city center. Walking slowly along the fence, I finally saw a single-story house. John gently pushed open the door, and in front of him was a spacious hall, which was empty, but it could not be said to be completely empty. At least there was a young and beautiful girl at the front desk. The girl at the front desk smiled sweetly when she saw John. Welcome. Hello, I'm here to retrieve my Pokémon. John also smiled and nodded. Without too much greeting, he directly stated his purpose. Okay, please provide your ID. John raised his hand and asked the girl to scan his trainer watch. Hello, Mr. John, please follow me. Is it okay to leave like this? John slightly turned his face to indicate that there was no one here, and the girl still smiled. It's okay, Ame will come to replace me soon. After that, a figure really walked out from the other side, Sister Michun. Ame, I'll take the customer to retrieve his partner, and I'll leave this to you first. Sister Michun squinted her eyes and waved, then walked to the front desk and began to look after the store skillfully. Ame, you are really unique. John couldn't help but sigh. Under the guidance of the girl, John finally met his partners whom he had not seen for several days. Seeing John, whose body had recovered, they were also very excited. Each of them was full of energy, especially Baby Dragon. This was the first time it had left John since its birth. At this time, it had hugged John tightly, muttering in its mouth, as if it was venting its anxiety. In the Pokémon Ball, it saw its partners and the scene where John was ruthlessly crushed by Gengar. It had been suppressed for a long time. Seeing that his Pokémon were in good condition, John paid the money happily. However, the beautiful night sky had appeared at this time, and it seemed quite far away from the Pokémon Center. In desperation, John successfully found a small lake with the help of toucans and prepared to camp there for the night. "Companions, come out." After setting up a bonfire, the 6 Pokémon appeared in front of John again. In the breeding house, they could not vent their emotions as freely as Baby Dragon, but at this time and place, they and John were the only ones left, and they could finally rush over without reservation. The Wolfhound and Hound ran over first, rubbing John's legs affectionately. Then Bank IRAs quickly pushed them away and hugged John tightly, just like the posture of protecting John in the ruins. Baby Dragon was so anxious that he kept spinning behind Bank IRAs, and he found that he couldn't squeeze in at all. In the end, Gyarados slowly crawled over, pushed Bank IRAs away with his huge head, let Baby Dragon enter John's arms first, and then leaned his head over. From beginning to end, toucan kept circling above John's head. After venting their emotions, John and Gyarados quickly entered the camping state. There was not much food left in John's backpack. He had planned to go back to town to buy some, but he ran into a mission and had to stay in the hospital for a few days. He could only make do at night. This place was too close to where humans lived, and there was almost nothing valuable. John didn't want to waste time at night, so he began to plan the tricks they needed to learn later for the existing lineup. Now that he had the support of Devon Manufacturing Co., Limited, John seemed a bit rich. However, he was still quite confident in his ability to make money, so he only asked for resources and he could buy them at the original price. The more equal the benefits he got from them, the less passive he would be in the future. Although it was the original price, John had no way to buy these things, such as carrying props, precious energy blocks, special tree fruits and ores, etc. Although Gyarados was quickly defeated in the battle with the king-level Pokémon, it was indeed a great improvement in its fighting spirit. If Pokémon had only 2 attributes at most, Gyarados' third attribute would definitely be Dragon. It's strange that it has a flying attribute even though it doesn't have many flying skills. However, John is going to use the Dragon Energy block to activate its Dragon attribute first, just like Ziokun's Gyarados in the Yanmo gym, which is not afraid of lightning. There is nothing special to say about the Gyarados and Houndoom. They are still the same, with speed as the main focus. Gyarados has more close-range skills, while Houndoom has more long-range skills of the fire and dark types. Bank IRAs needs to be both offensive and defensive. It needs to learn some defensive moves and other skills to prevent being restrained due to slow action. Don't be like Xiaoxi's tortoise. No matter how agile it is, it can't be faster than the small and agile Pokémon. It's better to focus on attack and defense and give up speed first. Baby Dragon should eat nutritional supplements and develop well. Toucan should exercise its wings and take Baby Dragon and John to fly. Chapter 65. The first day of camping again is finally over. I am used to sleeping on a comfortable cushion, but it is a bit strange to sleep in the wild. Since the city is a no-fly zone, you cannot fly with Pokémon unless you have special permission. John could only go to the breeding house, borrow a bicycle shamelessly, and return to the city center of Kana's city. Only here can John's needs be met in one stop. After preparing all the supplies, John still has a lot of funds. After getting a production process of a Dragon Attribute Pokémon Energy Block from Daigo, John's backpack was almost full of raw materials. After all, the rarer the thing, the higher the failure rate. This is why the Dragon Attribute Pokémon is powerful, but the poor have almost no way to cultivate it. It is rare to see the final evolved Pokémon in the wild, which is also because their natural evolution requires a long process. Often in this process, they are either subdued by the trainer or die. Setting foot on a familiar journey, without the restriction of flying, John immediately released the toucan. The toucan flapped its wings and flew high, taking John to shuttle through the vast forest. It took him 3 or 4 days to walk before, but this time, except for letting the toucan rest every hour, it only took him 1 day to return to his camp in the wild. I don't know if the Cocodoras have slacked off in the past few days, but I only left 3 days of food for them. The Cocodoras lying around the wooden house opened their eyes after hearing the subtle movement of walking. I'm back. As soon as the voice fell, they looked up and saw John's very familiar face and the toucan hovering above his head. Then, they immediately gathered around excitedly, calling happily, and the sound came one after another, full of joy. John quickly took out a bag of food specially prepared for rock-type Pokémon from his backpack, then slowly squatted down and patiently fed them one by one. Now that he had bank IRAs, he really didn't need a combat force like Boscodora to join the team, but this didn't prevent him from getting along harmoniously and friendly with the Cocodoras. This feeling of getting along, well, is just like feeding those cute kittens and puppies. The key is that they are full of trust in John and are willing to accept John's feeding with joy. John looked at his wooden house quietly, and for a moment, a different feeling surged in his heart. Recalling this experience, he almost never came back this time. He didn't know how long these Cocodoras would wait for him here. He stood quietly for a long time until the Cocodoras kept rubbing his trouser legs intimately. "Do you want to play with baby dragons?" John asked softly. Hearing this, the Cocodoras immediately jumped up and down with excitement. John understood, reached out and touched his remaining 5 Pokémon balls, and threw them all out. As soon as the baby dragon came out, it couldn't wait to collide with the Cocodoras closest to it. Both little guys fell to the ground, but quickly stood up and began to play freely. The pool of Gyarados was dry at this time, and it immediately sprayed a lot of water when it saw this. Gradually, the water level of the pool began to rise slowly, and it happily returned to the pool, constantly slapping its tail hard, and for a while, the water splashed everywhere, like pearls falling. Seeing this, Bank IRAs and Hound rushed to flee the area quickly, fearing that they would be splashed by the water. The big wolfhound was leisurely, and found a comfortable position at the door of the wooden house and lay down comfortably. Since it was familiar with John's plan, it knew that now was a rare time to relax, have fun or rest. So it yawned comfortably, closed its eyes and continued to sleep. John did not control them. Although there were people to help take care of the wooden house, the wind and sand here were not too strong, but there would be dust flying occasionally. Now the house was full of dust. He had no choice but to let Bank IRAs help him carry the bucket to the pool of Gyarados to fetch water, and then he would clean it up slowly and carefully. Slowly, he planned to train Bank IRAs to get used to water. Although it would still be hurt if attacked by water, it would be good as long as there was a certain resistance. At this time, he couldn't help but think of the encounter that Zai had once encountered. I have never seen a swimming Tyrannosaurus that can swim in the water. Since Tyrannosaurus can swim in the water, then Banguilas must be able to do it. Right, Banguilas? John's voice suddenly sounded behind Banguilas, and Banguilas instantly felt an inexplicable chill. He turned his head subconsciously and saw John's smiley and meaningful expression. Every time Banguilas went to fetch water, Gyarados would deliberately splash water on Banguila's body, making it wet. Although Banguila's strength is generally higher than Gyarados, due to the attribute restraint, it is still uncertain who will win the final victory if they really compete. However, it is precisely because of the existence of Banguilas that Gyarados has been more diligent in training. As John's first Pokémon, it firmly believes that it must always maintain its position as the boss. Fortunately, it has the same idea as John, and Gyarados means the most to John. Even if all resources are drained, John will not hesitate to upgrade Gyarados first. This two-way rush of one person and one Pokémon makes John full of expectations. He sincerely hopes that Gyarados can break through himself and upgrade to the gym level as soon as possible. There are still 20 days for special training, and John has made plans long ago. The first gym to challenge is the Orange Gym. After a simple cleanup, looking at the large number of Cocodora on the field, John did not prepare so much Pokémon food this time. In desperation, John could only take out energy cubes as their lunch. Fortunately, John is familiar with making ordinary energy cubes. These energy cubes are almost all for them to fill their stomachs and replenish a little energy, but even so, they are so happy that they can't help themselves. After having enough food and drink, they were very sensible and well behaved. They immediately returned to the cave and started digging for the reward for the meal. Chapter 66. After experiencing the hardships of life and death, John especially cherishes every minute and every second with his partners. Even the 3 Pokémon he snatched from poachers, Houndoom, Bank IRAs, and Toucans, had fought for him without fear of life and death, firmly stood in front of him, and protected him with their lives. There is no such thing as showing mercy. Agen died tragically in the mouth of a Bo monster because of his poor strength. John still can't forget Agen's expression of asking for help, but he should have been poisoned at that time and couldn't shout at all. Even Dr. Taniguchi, who was very kind to him, died in the ruins at the hands of Lambda. In the future, try to be a little more surviving. He is not like the protagonist group, who exudes the light of justice and is not afraid of any challenge. Who said that after experiencing the feeling of death, people will become braver? John no longer wants to experience that kind of despair. He is a normal person who can live well. Who is willing to die for others like this? Today, let you have a good rest. Tomorrow, we will start formal training. John said loudly. All 6 Pokémon heard John's voice, but they did not show too much excitement. They also experienced a life and death test. Their desire for strength was stronger than ever at this time. Then, start training. John's words sounded a little weak, but after hearing them, the 6 Pokémon cheered instantly. Baby Dragon climbed onto the back of the toucan immediately, screamed excitedly, and pointed his short arms at the sky. Houndoom and the Wolfhound began to run wildly, and Gyarados took the initiative to find Bank IRAs and asked for a battle. This was the first time Bank IRAs participated in such a collective training. Before, it had always been taught by a special teacher, the king-level Boscadora. However, John planned to train it for a few days by himself, and then put it back inside the cave. After all, he had to give a gift to the boss here. While they were fighting on their own, John took out the 2 skill learning devices he had bought at a huge cost. This kind of thing is almost monopolized by the Alliance, because the difficulty of the production process makes the quantity quite scarce. In addition, if the quality is uneven, it is easy to damage the Pokémon. After all, if the energy is not loaded properly, it is easy to cause an explosion when learning. Yes, the thing inside is very unique, that is, a ball of energy, which needs to be absorbed by the Pokémon, and the success rate is definitely not 100%. After all, it is difficult to let the fire Pokémon learn the tricks of the water system, and let the water Pokémon learn the tricks of the grass system. And the skills that can be learned also depend on the Pokémon's own talents and the energy contained in its body. For example, if you want to let Bang IRAs learn thunder, you need to see whether its ancestors have the attributes of the electrical system and how much electrical energy it has inherited. If not, it is likely that it will not be able to learn, and it will also waste this learning device in vain. It is said that the factories that produce learning devices are all sealed. Even if you know how to make them, you can't make them without the corresponding machines. But there is a place where this thing does exist, and that is the black market. You can find everything in the black market, and the price will be relatively cheap. Even if a new product is just launched today, there will be imitations or pirated products on the black market tonight or tomorrow. The price of the Alliance's learning device is more than half cheaper on the black market, but most people who can afford this price will not go to the black market to buy it. John also thought about letting Bang IRAs learn to defend, targeting its slow speed to resist some fatal damage. Even if it fails to use it continuously, it can still use its strong body to resist the attack. And the general skills are 100% successful, unless it is a weird Pokémon like Ditto. The remaining one is the Freezing Ray, which is for Gyarados to learn. Almost all water-type Pokémon have ice attribute genes, so Gyarados shouldn't have any problems learning. This cost John 300,000 Alliance coins, which is equivalent to 2 fire stones he dug. Speaking of these stones, they are not only useful for evolution, but also for absorbing the corresponding attribute energy, so that you can master the special moves of that attribute. It's just that the energy required is a bit too much, and only some families have such strong funds to feed it. Otherwise, you can let the Pokémon of the same attribute absorb it to enhance the power of your own attribute moves. John is now focusing on cultivating Pokémon include Gyarados, Bank IRAs, and Dragonite. However, at this stage, Dragonite is far from being able to become its main force. John's financial expenditure is also mostly concentrated on these 3 Pokémon. Dragonite mainly provides nutrition and reasonable injection of maturation potions to make it mature as soon as possible, and then gain experience through battles and finally achieve evolution. Therefore, John now adopts a free-range approach for Dragonite. It yearns for the sky, so John lets Toucan take it to experience the beauty of flying. This can not only stimulate its desire for evolution, but also exercise Toucan's flying ability. After all, Dragonite is not light in weight. Although it was born not long ago, its weight is now close to 35 kilograms, which is not much different from the normal weight of Dragonite given by the Alliance. Gyarados and Bank IRAs mainly rely on the supply of nutrients and the combination of special moves. Although with the passage of time and continuous fighting, they will naturally understand different special moves. But some things do need extra learning, and Bankaraz's demand for ore is not low, which is one of the reasons why John put it in the cave. Boscodora's teaching to it is half based on imparting skills and half on feeding ore, which is Boscodora's own experience of growth. Therefore, John will never give up this base, and the same is true for his friendship with Boscodora. Even if he becomes a king-level Pokémon trainer in the future, it will not change. I just don't know how much money it will take to buy the right to use this area from the Alliance. In addition to studying the data of dragon-attributed energy blocks, John will also shuttle among them during his rest time. With his rich experience, he points out their shortcomings. In the end, after going through hardships and consuming 10 portions of materials, he successfully made an energy block. It just so happens that the amount of this energy block is enough for Gyarados, Bankiras, and Baby Dragon. As luck would have it, Dragonite is a purebred dragon-type Pokémon, and Gyarados and Bankiras also have quite a lot of dragon-type energy in their bodies, which means they naturally have the opportunity to learn a lot of dragon-type tricks. However, as a result, the current capital expenditure seems to have increased significantly. Chapter 67. A few days later, John drove his car and came to Yamanashi town again to purchase supplies. In order to make high-quality energy cubes, John invested almost all his time in it. Now he has refined some finished products, but the raw materials have been exhausted. What's more, Pokémon food cannot be put into a backpack in large quantities. After agreeing to Daigo's investment, he sent someone to take care of John's daily needs. But John only contacted the Pokémon store through him, bought a batch of food at a wholesale price, and processed a few pieces of ore by the way. In order to improve the strength of Pokémon, John now leaves the water stone to Gyarados, and other ores useful to Bankiras are also reserved for it. Now Bankiras has returned to the cave again to accept Boscodora's teachings. So, in order to express his gratitude, John specially purchased a lot of food and some energy cubes that are beneficial to steel Pokémon. Through trading, he can dig ores freely in the cave without making Cocodoras unhappy. Reciprocity is the best policy. No one or Pokémon will not get anything in return for their efforts. John cleverly grasped this point. Now, he has been very successful in this tribe. The place is remote. John has been there for a long time. Except for a poacher, he has not found anyone else here. Although wild Pokémon are aggressive and ambitious, they are also simple and direct. As long as they meet someone who is really good to them, they will put away their hostility. After this purchase, almost all the money earned from the ore was exchanged for supplies, but John did not feel bad. After all, these steel-attributed energy blocks can make them feel happier and even get higher returns. After returning to the camp, it was already night. This Keiho conference has already kicked off. John bought a solar power supply, a TV, and a light. The main purpose is to understand what level these trainers are at in the real league conference. Time flies by like a white horse passing by in a flash. In a blink of an eye, 20 days have passed since John returned to the Wasteland Canyon. The Keiho conference also ended successfully a few days ago. The trainer who won the championship was a gym-level trainer who focused on the fire system. John logged on to the official website of the Hone Alliance and carefully checked the detailed information of this person, but found that it was not of much reference value, because he would definitely not be able to participate in the next Keiho conference. He just wanted to know where the champion's level was roughly. Although in the original work, the champion of the next Keiho conference is Gia. But among Gia's Pokémon, only Meowth and Metagross are at the gym level. However, who can guarantee that their strength will not be improved in this year? Therefore, the reference value of Gia to John now is the starting line. Everyone has their own unique opportunities, not to mention that Gia also accepted Daigo's investment. In terms of resources, he will definitely not have a shortage problem. Therefore, John must work harder than him to defeat him. Today is the last day to stay here. After today, John will say goodbye to the Cocodoras that he has been with for such a long time. During these days, John's Pokémon are training here. In their spare time, they always go out of the cave, and then a few Codoras will find Gyarados to fight. Over time, this place has become their paradise of joy. Compared with the monotonous days in the cave, they obviously prefer the vibrant feeling now. Under the protection of the tribe leader Boscodorus, no other wild Pokémon dare to invade this area. This results in the combat experience of these Codoras being almost zero. In addition to competing with each other, they dig and eat ores to promote their growth. John took Bankiras back, and asked Boscodora to arrange his tribe to help take care of the house, and said that he would come back again. All the items in his wooden house remained intact. Then Bankeraz's rock-blocking skill was used to seal this area tightly, and the wooden house has now become a rockery-like existence. There is no significant difference in the strength of Pokémon for the time being. After all, there has been no real battle. But after feeding many dragon attribute energy cubes and water stones, Gyarados can clearly feel that it has become stronger and stronger. Although it has not yet reached the level of the gym, it may not be far away. Bankeras has firmly established its foothold at the gym level. Now it is not so easy for Gyarados to defeat it. After packing up his luggage, John released the Wolfhound and Houndoom. Baby Dragon has matured a lot and no longer wants to come out. These days, Baby Dragon has absorbed a lot of nutrients, and the time it sleeps far exceeds the time it is active. Without this annoying little guy, John's steps have become brisk and fast. He holds the Pokémon Navigator and prepares to cross the forest and go straight to Chinjua City. He did not choose to fly with toucans, mainly because time is not particularly urgent. Besides, the special training ended early, allowing the Pokémon to digest what they have learned well, and not making them too tired. It seems that after the Keiho conference is over, we have to capture a Pokémon that can be ridden in the forest. John said to himself. This caused a strong sense of crisis in the Wolfhound and Houndoom in front. They looked at each other and felt that they might be eliminated. The reason why John was not so anxious was because he considered that he was traveling with Xiaoao this time, and there was a high probability that Xiao Shang would follow. He couldn't ride his own Pokémon and let them travel hard. There was no room for them to ride together, and they were not as huge as Onyx. John didn't like Onyx either, otherwise he would have taken a plane to the Orange Islands to capture the Crystal Onyx. Since his trainer identity was entered into the Alliance system, he didn't dare to sell Pokémon anymore. Although he had only done it once, if he was not careful, he would be labeled as a poacher, and he would not be able to cry at that time. Otherwise, the price of a Crystal Onyx would definitely be higher than that of a Quasi-God, which is the favorite of collectors. Chapter 68. With the successful conclusion of the Keiho conference, trainers in the forest have sprung up like mushrooms after rain. Almost all of them have a notable characteristic, that is, they are keen to challenge trainers when they meet them. John accepts all these challenges. Of course, there is no substantial reward for winning. This is not playing a game, but just adding a little fun to the journey. There is an official road carefully built by the Alliance nearby. Many people push their bicycles and wander back and forth in the forest, hoping to encounter rare Pokémon and capture them. As long as they are not in the wild Pokémon protection area, Pokémon in the wild can be captured naturally. Of course, if the number of captures is too large at one time, it will attract the close attention of the Alliance. Although the Rocket's affairs have been strictly gagged by the Alliance, with the close cooperation between the gym trainers and the police station, many people still keenly feel that something extraordinary has happened. Therefore, in this sensitive situation, except for the Magma team and the Aqua team, the rest of the gangs settled down and spent this special time honestly. This has led to a much calmer wilderness in the Hone region. From time to time, you can see patrol members passing through. If you are lucky, you can also see a police car carrying a full car of prisoners passing by. As for the specific situation now, John is not convenient to inquire. He is considered a survivor of that incident, but the subsequent actions of the Alliance have nothing to do with him. Baby Dragon, use the rocket headbutt. Hearing John's voice, Baby Dragon's short calves kept speeding up, and with its most skilled trick at present, it rushed towards the opposite Snowboy and knocked it to the ground. Snowboy, stand up and use the frozen wind. The trainer on the opposite side was not to be outdone and shouted at the top of his voice. The Snowboy immediately stood up, opened his mouth, and a burst of cold air quickly exhaled from his mouth. Baby Dragon, use sparks. John quickly gave the order. Baby Dragon also stopped and sprayed sparks, trying to resist the attack of the frozen wind. However, the opposite Snowboy was stronger, and Baby Dragon's sparks soon couldn't resist the powerful attack of the frozen wind, and Baby Dragon soon fell down. I lost. John walked up and picked up Baby Dragon, then picked up the spray and simply healed it. I have to complain that it's no wonder that Zai can easily pick up the young Kiras. It turns out that he didn't feel much effort when he picked up Baby Dragon. After spraying the spray, Baby Dragon felt much more comfortable, and John then put it on the back of Houndoom. The temperature of fire-type Pokémon itself is relatively high, which can well relieve the frostbite caused by freezing, and the remaining injuries will soon recover on their own. During the special training, John found that the fire attribute energy in baby dragon seemed to be quite strong. It is estimated that its father or mother is a fire-type Pokémon. It learned the fire attribute trick very quickly, but it accidentally learned the spark when it was chased by Cocodora. Every time John saw the opposing trainer using the most basic Pokémon, he would release baby dragon to fight, almost just to the point. Baby dragon's injuries can also recover quickly, and then once again into the next battle. Along the way, there are wins and losses. It's not a formal competition, so there is no need to bring out the strongest Pokémon every time. Even if you win, it won't have any substantial effect, so it's better to let the weakest baby dragon gain some practical experience. As for winning or losing, baby dragon doesn't care, and has never been discouraged. This is what John is most satisfied with it. Baby dragon has been born for more than a month. During this period, after a lot of nutrition intake and growth-promoting medicines, it has just entered the ordinary level at the end of special training. It is conceivable how difficult it is to train baby dragon. Moreover, the special moves it can learn are limited. Apart from the special moves of dragon and fire attributes, John does not intend to let it learn too many miscellaneous skills. His goal is to cultivate an aerial overlord, not a dragon that can only run around and fly forward to attack enemies in the distance. At this time, the place where the two fought was tightly surrounded by more than a dozen people, and they all looked at the baby dragon in John's arms with envy. The Pokémon around them are almost all common types, such as walking grass, thorntail insects, lotus leaf boys and the like. These people probably just captured their own initial Pokémon, and came to watch when they saw someone fighting. After all, this year's Home League conference has already begun, and they are preparing to set off on their journey with their dreams. Hello, my name is Ale Yang, I want to fight with you. A slightly older man walked out of the crowd. Seeing him, John seemed to have seen him somewhere, and there were already many exclamations from the crowd. It's Ale Yang, the top 16 player in the Keiho conference. I've seen his game, his flame chicken is very strong. I didn't expect to see him here, so happy. Are they going to fight? After listening to the conversations of the people around him, John remembered why he felt so familiar. He had just finished watching the game of the Keiho conference, and he didn't expect to meet a contestant. Hello, my name is John, I've seen your game. John also greeted him, but he found that Ale Yang's eyes were staring at the baby dragon with burning eyes. However, as a righteous trainer, Ale Yang immediately abandoned his inner thoughts. John, how about it? If you win, I will give you the mountain bike I just bought. John looked at the bicycle he was pushing curiously and found that it was the largest brand under the alliance, and the price was as high as 50,000 alliance coins. After all, this brand of bicycle is easy to carry, saving time and effort, and many trainers who have the conditions will be equipped with a bicycle. So its quality is very good and can often shuttle through mountains and forests. The most important point is that it can also effectively defend against the special moves of Pokémon. For this reason, its price is definitely not cheap. Unlike some ordinary bicycles, they can't even resist 100,000 volts and are directly scrapped. John couldn't help but be a little moved. Although this is a bicycle used by others, it's okay to save money. What if you win? John asked curiously, wondering what he would ask for. Could it be that he wanted to give him the baby dragon himself? Ale Yang glanced at the Pokémon on both sides of John, then shook his head. It's just a one-sided bet. As one of the top 16 players in the Keiho conference, he also has his own dignity. Chapter 69. Okay. John nodded confidently, then said, what are the rules? It's 1-to-1. I'm looking forward to fighting with you. After that, Ale Yang took out the Pokémon ball and released his Pokémon first. Go, my partner. What appeared in front of John was an eye-catching Pokémon. It had blue eyes, white feathers, a V-shaped comb standing tall, and bandaged claws that were particularly eye-catching. Its strong legs supported its body steadily, and every step was full of explosive power. It's Blaziken. As a Pokémon with high popularity in the Hone region, Blaziken really has both strength and appearance. Its handsome appearance and powerful strength make it the best choice for countless trainers. Can we go over there? John pointed to a small pond not far away, and Liang nodded. Are you going to use a water-type Pokémon? Yes. John did not deny it. It didn't matter whether he went to the pond or not. After all, the momentum of Flame Chicken looked similar to that of Gyarados, and they were both at the peak of the elite level. Go, Gyarados! Every time, John could not change the word go. Fortunately, he did not shout it's decided to be you, otherwise it would sound very second-rate. With a throw of his hand, a Pokémon ball released a giant beast, and then the Pokémon ball returned to John's hand. The originally calm lake surface began to surge constantly, and a huge figure appeared faintly. Roar! A roar like venting sounded, and then a blue figure jumped out of the water, opened its bloody mouth, stared at Flame Chicken closely, and showed a belligerent look. Gyarados has been holding back for too long. It already knows that this Pokémon is its opponent. Gyarados. Many people in the crowd were frightened by Gyarados' ferocious appearance and retreated repeatedly, but some people's eyes flashed with excitement. After all, Gyarados is also a very famous Pokémon. Yang looked at Gyarados with a fierce face, and his heart suddenly became solemn. His attributes were completely restrained. Whether it was a fire-type trick or a fighting-type trick, this battle would be difficult. Can we start? Yes, but I didn't expect that you would have such a powerful Pokémon. Hearing John's words, Yang quickly looked at Blaziken, only to see Blaziken holding his head high and chest out, not afraid of Gyarados' powerful aura at all. As the crowd quickly dispersed, they all hid far away and watched nervously. John and Yang looked at each other, nodded to each other, and signaled the start of the battle. Blazer, use the jet of flames. Yang shouted loudly. Gyarados, use the tornado. The speed of Flame Chicken was as fast as lightning. Almost in an instant, there was no need to condense fire energy. The hot flames sprayed out from its mouth, like a ferocious fire dragon. Gyarados suddenly raised its thick tail and swung it hard on the lake, rolling up the surrounding lake water and forming a huge tornado. The tornado whistled and directly swallowed up the flames of Flame Chicken, and then swept towards Flame Chicken with overwhelming force. Jump up and avoid it! Yang shouted anxiously. Flame Chicken's jumping power was amazing. With a sudden kick of its legs, it jumped to a height of dozens of meters. However, the surrounding area was extremely empty, and there was no place for Flame Chicken to use as a springboard. Gyarados, use the water cannon at the place where Flame Chicken fell. John ordered decisively. Gyarados immediately opened its mouth and sprayed a powerful water cannon. The water cannon had a diameter of 1 meter, like a thick water column, spraying fiercely from bottom to top. Blaziken used both hands to protect the vital parts, but was still hit hard by the water cannon. However, it quickly adjusted its posture in the air, and after landing, its legs left a deep mark on the ground, and the dust was flying. Blazer, are you okay? Yang asked anxiously, and Blaziken nodded to Yang coldly, with firmness and indomitable eyes. Use lightning flash. Yang ordered again. Blaziken instantly turned into a flash of light, so fast that people could hardly see its figure, and rushed straight to Gyarados. Gyarados, use dive. John responded quickly. After hearing the command, Gyarados quickly plunged into the pond with its huge body and disappeared in an instant, avoiding the attack of lightning flash. Then, it quickly reappeared behind the Flame Chicken, stirring up the lake water. Once again use water cannon. To deal with fire-type Pokémon, it is better to use water attribute tricks. Gyarados has long been familiar with the skill of water cannon, and the powerful water cannon sprayed out again, shooting at Blaziken. Blaziken was knocked to the ground again, raising a cloud of dust. Yang regretted it at this time. The combat power of water-type Pokémon in water is beyond imagination, and it can also cleverly use the pool to avoid damage. He smiled bitterly for a while. How can he fight? The two Pokémon were originally close in strength, and Blaziken's speed advantage has disappeared. If you can't hit Gyarados, it's not a solution to just dodge blindly. There will always be a time when your physical strength is exhausted. Yang gritted his teeth and looked at Blaziken firmly. Blaziken, don't give up, use bodybuilding to enhance your strength. Upon hearing this, Flame Chicken immediately began to use its bodybuilding skills. Its muscles bulged one by one, exuding a strong breath of power. Seeing this, John did not dare to slack off at all. Gyarados, continue to attack with water cannon. Gyarados once again sprayed out a powerful water cannon and rushed towards Flame Chicken, who was performing bodybuilding. Flame Chicken, dodge and use Flame Kick. Yang shouted loudly. Flame Chicken flexibly sideways to avoid the water cannon, and then its legs ignited with blazing flames, and flew towards Gyarados to kick. John's heart tightened. Gyarados, dive into the water. Gyarados quickly sank into the water, and Flame Chicken's kick was empty again. Flame Chicken, use jet flames on the water surface. Aoyang continued to command. Flame Chicken opened its mouth wide and sprayed a hot flame that burned on the water waves, causing the surrounding water temperature to rise sharply. Gyarados, come out and use the Destruction Death Ray! John shouted. Gyarados rushed out of the water, emitting a powerful destructive death ray from its mouth, which collided with the jet flames of Flame Chicken, making a huge explosion. In the smoke, Flame Chicken was already a little out of breath, but his eyes were still full of fighting spirit. Flame Chicken, use your last strength to use the flash charge! Aoyang shouted desperately. Gyarados, full strength water cannon! John also issued the final order. Flame Chicken was wrapped in flames and rushed towards Gyarados like a burning meteor. Gyarados sprayed a huge water cannon to meet Flame Chicken. Chapter 70. Stop! A tender cry suddenly sounded, like a thunderbolt breaking through the sky. Gardevoir, use telekinesis to change the trajectory of the water cannon. Alito, move to the front of Flame Chicken in an instant and use guard to block it. The crowd of onlookers looked over and saw a group of people on motorcycles coming at lightning speed, led by Miss Juncha, who was wearing a police uniform and looked heroic. Two uninvited guests suddenly appeared on the battlefield between Gyarados and Flame Chicken. Gardevoir raised his hands gracefully, and exerted powerful telekinesis to forcibly transfer the trajectory of the water cannon to the sky. Then, the water cannon turned into rain and fell, like a sudden downpour. An Alito appeared in front of Flame Chicken like a ghost, and a solid barrier instantly unfolded, steadily blocking Flame Chicken who was charging with Flash Flame. John and Aoyang woke up from their dream, noticed Miss Juncha's arrival, and immediately stopped the fight. Everyone disperse first, you two stay. Miss Juncha turned gorgeously, got off the motorcycle, and shouted at the two. The rest of the motorcycles quickly surrounded John and Aoyang. John's heart suddenly became empty, as if he had a lively rabbit in his arms, beating fast. Aoyang's situation was not much better, his face was pale, and fine beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. After the crowd dispersed, Miss Juncha glared at the two men, her eyebrows raised, and loudly criticized. Don't you know that when fighting in the wild, the premise is not to destroy the living environment of wild Pokémon? Take a good look at what a mess you have caused. Hearing this, John and Aoyang looked around tremblingly, especially John, who was even more uneasy, because most of the damage was caused by Gyarados. I saw that large areas of trees were falling all over the place, and even the water source on which wild Pokémon depended for survival had lowered the water level a lot. The surrounding land was bumpy, and the originally lush green plants were destroyed beyond recognition. Captain, we have other tasks to do. A police officer suddenly spoke to remind Juncha. Miss Juncha immediately glared at John and Aoyang fiercely, making the two feel even more uneasy and afraid to breathe. There was no way to take them back to the police station, so the police officers began to check the identity information of the two. John, 15 years old, from Wuda Town, an elite trainer of the Alliance, has registered for the Alliance Conference. Aoyang, 18 years old, from Weiabai Town, an elite trainer of the Alliance, one of the top 16 in the last KO Conference, has also registered for this year's Alliance Conference. A police officer simply scanned their trainer watches in an orderly manner and clearly stated their information. Since you are first-time offenders, each of you will find someone to guarantee you. Humph, two elite trainers, you don't even understand the Alliance law. Seeing that these two people had a good attitude to admit their mistakes and were registered trainers in the Alliance, Juncha's anger suddenly subsided a little, but this did not mean that they could leave immediately, but needed bail. The purpose of bail is to make the guarantor promise that they will not make this mistake again. I can contact the Audiobook Institute, and they can testify for me. Aoyang quickly raised his hand, and after Miss Juncha nodded in permission, a police officer immediately dialed the communication number of the Audiobook Institute and quickly connected. If the situation is true, Aoyang only needs to pay the fine within a month, and there will be no problem at all. When it was Qiaoen's turn, he couldn't help but feel a little troubled. On weekdays, he would never contact the welfare home if he had nothing to do, let alone such a shameful thing. I know Mr. Qunli in Chinjua City, he should be able to do it, right? In the end, he had no choice but to move out of Qunli, who made him go to him this time. Mr. Qunli. Jun Xia looked at Qiaoen in surprise, she didn't expect that he actually knew Qunli. She knew in her heart that Qunli was very busy now and might not have time to make a call. Call the gym, but Mr. Qunli might not be in the gym. Jun Sha turned to look at the police officer next to him, and he immediately flipped through the address book. Beep beep beep. Mexi Mexi. Hello, I'm a police officer from Chinchua City Police Department. Is Mr. Kyunli in the gym? A female voice sounded, and John knew it was Mitsuko who answered the phone. I'm his wife. Is there anything I can do for you? The voice on the other end was obviously a little nervous, and asked in a hurried tone. Don't worry, it's a man named Jin's trainer violated the league law because he fought with other trainers in the Orange Forest, so can you bail him out? John? Where is John? Aunt Mitsuko, haha. I'm here. John spoke a little embarrassedly, looking a little embarrassed. John, what law did you break? Is it serious? Are you injured? John looked at Junsha beside him, she nodded, motioning for him to continue, and John continued to speak. I'm fine, it's just that I haven't met a strong opponent for a long time, and I messed up the forest for a while. John said embarrassedly while touching his head. It's good that you're fine, our orange gym can bail John out. John, come quickly, Xiao Shang knows you're coming soon, and he's been clamoring to find you every day. Mizuko said domineeringly. As Kyunli's wife, she can make decisions for Kyunli to some extent, after all, husband and wife are one. Okay, I'll go over after I finish my business here. John immediately agreed, and then Junsha took over and exchanged a few words. After all, they knew each other, and she successfully dispelled Mizuko's concerns. Okay, this won't happen again. As trainers, you naturally know the dangers in the wild now. If you destroy the home where Pokémon live, you have also read books and should know that there are many serious consequences. Junsha turned over neatly and got on the motorcycle immediately, and finally did not forget to give a serious education. Then she took back Gardevoir and Alito, roared the accelerator, and led the team to continue the mission. Serious consequences. John had indeed seen similar situations in books. At the beginning of the establishment of the Alliance, humans destroyed forests for their own development, resulting in the destruction of tens of thousands of Pokémon homes. This behavior caused strong dissatisfaction among Pokémon, and Pokémon frequently attacked cities under construction. At that time, people in the city fell into panic, and the construction process was seriously hindered. In order to ease the tension between humans and wild Pokémon, the Alliance later began to remedy the situation and then revised this law. In this way, human behavior is restrained, the living environment of Pokémon is protected, and efforts are made to maintain the harmonious coexistence of humans and nature. Chapter 71. Looking at Miss Junsha leaving, John and Aoyang looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. Aoyang stretched out his hand and said friendly, John, Gyarados is very strong. If we continue to fight, the only one who will lose is Flame Chicken. I actually only have the advantage in attributes. I have to say, Aoyang, you let me see the level of the Keiho conference in advance. John also stretched out his hand and shook his hand, but what he waited for was Aoyang's bitter smile. Don't laugh at me. You are so strong at the age of 15, and it seems that we have become competitors, right? Yes, let's keep this duel in the Keiho conference. After John finished speaking, Aoyang suddenly remembered, ran to the side quickly, and walked over with his bicycle. We didn't win or lose, I can't accept it. John shook his head. Aoyang said unhappily, of course I know, my money is not picked up. Then why are you doing this? John pointed to the bicycle that had been pushed in front of him and looked at Aoyang with a puzzled look. Actually, I want to exchange with you, where did you capture your baby dragon? Aoyang asked weakly, and then stopped talking, quietly waiting for John's next words. A second-hand car in exchange for a piece of information about a quasi-god cub? John despised Aoyang in his heart. In terms of shamelessness, he could not compare with Aoyang. However, in this case, John took the bicycle over. Actually, the baby dragon is the prize I won in the Pokémon battle held on the cruise ship. John, this is meaningless. Who would take a quasi-god egg as a prize? Aoyang stared at John with a look of do you think I am mentally retarded? It's true. But the organizer didn't recognize it as the egg of baby dragon. John held the bicycle tightly, the transaction has been completed, and I can't regret it. Seeing John's look, Aoyang had no choice but to believe it, and then John took back the Gyarados. Nice to meet you, Aoyang, but I have to go. I believe we will see each other again soon. I will go to Weiabai town in a few days, maybe I can really meet it. John waved to Ale Yang, rode on the bicycle, and put Baby Dragon in the basket of his bicycle. Then he installed the navigation system, followed the big wolfhound and Heluya to the official road, and felt very happy. However, the comfort was only a momentary thing, and he still needed to pay the fine to get through this trip. Why am I so unlucky? John looked at the sky in front of him and howled in his heart. Chinjua City has the leading forest resources in the Hone area Chinjua Forest. When John and Ale Yang were fighting Pokémon, they were already in the Chinjua Forest. This forest is extremely vast, not only tightly surrounding Chinjua City, but also adjacent to the sea. Because of this, Chinjua City is known as the city where people communicate with nature in the Hone region. Qunli's family originally came from Chengdu. After Qunli became the gym leader, he moved his family to Chinjua City and became a gym trainer in Chinjua City. John's destination this time is here. For many people, the town of Mabai in the southwest of the Hone region is regarded as the place where dreams begin. That's just because, in this area, the place where those families who have already paid the alliance fee receive their initial Pokémon is Mabai town. As long as you meet the age requirement, you can call the alliance at any time, and the alliance will notify Mabai town to prepare the initial Pokémon for newcomers to choose. However, the price of the three major families is the highest. Therefore, for families with relatively insufficient funds, they can also choose Pokémon such as Guniu, Lian Yatongzi, and Acorn Fruit for newcomers to choose. John didn't know which ones they were. After all, his own Magikarp was purchased from the black market. In the past few days, taking advantage of the enthusiasm of the successful conclusion of the Keiho conference, every city is full of publicity for various conferences, such as the new league conference, the gorgeous competition, etc. In fact, it is not only the case in the Fengyuan region. After the league conference in each region, similar situations will occur. However, the time for each region to hold the league conference is different. For example, after the Keiho conference ended, the Silver Conference in the Chengdu region has just entered the beginning stage. In this way, it can ensure that the league conference in your own region will not conflict with other regions, thereby increasing the ratings, and more for the purpose of promoting the characteristics of your own region. Color and Pokémon. The purpose of doing this is to attract more trainers from other regions to challenge, and also to promote the local tourism industry. After entering Chinjua City, John found that it looked very big, but the greenery of the entire city accounted for more than 50%, probably because it was once the Chinjua forest. However, there are still many people in this city. John rode his bicycle all the way, and there was almost no sign of Wangpu sublease on the shops on both sides of the road. It was also because of the Chinjua forest that this place became a place for trainers to replenish resources and rest. When passing by the Pokémon Center, John was surprised to find that so many trainers had gathered here. The atmosphere here is completely different from that of places like Kana City. In the words of the previous life, it is probably the huge difference between first-tier cities and fourth- and fifth-tier cities. Pokémon had been collected by John a long time ago. After all, cities are places where people live. In public places, except for small and cute Pokémon, the rest cannot be released under normal circumstances. Unless it is in a specific place such as a battlefield, a battle club, or a Pokémon school, this is also due to public security considerations. Of course, some cities do not have these regulations, which has become their own characteristics. The Orange Gym is easy to find. It is built on the edge of the Orange City, with a mountain behind it. The architectural style is very simple, Japanese, with a gable roof brick structure, and the main thing is that the courtyard is large enough. It is said that there is also a greenhouse covering a large area behind the gym. There are several trainers standing at the door, but the Orange Gym is not a challenge that can be challenged. In the circle of trainers, the difficulty of the Orange Gym ranks 5th. Of course, the Pokémon used in the gym cannot be the main force. If their main Pokémon are used, then the league conference does not need to be held, and almost no one can participate. Just when John had just parked the car and took out the things in the basket, he saw a man running out with a depressed face. It seems that the challenge failed. Chapter 72. Excuse me, are you here to challenge Chinjua Gym as well? John heard the voice and looked in the direction of the sound source. He found that it was actually a female reporter, followed by a photographer. No, I'm just a guest at Chinjua Gym. John shook his head, then looked at them curiously and asked. Excuse me, are you interviewing? Yes, the new league conference has started. As the largest TV station in Chinchua City, we must come to interview in real time. Are you a relative of Mr. Kyun Lee? The female reporter said happily. It seems that she has a lot of materials to write recently. Then why don't you go in? Because. That's because Dad didn't give them any special privileges, and the essence of a trainer is not to perform. Before the female reporter finished answering John, a little boy's voice came over. John looked carefully and shouted, Xiao Sheng. John, you're finally here. Xiao Sheng walked down the steps slowly, looking aloof, and occasionally raised his arm, extended his index finger, and touched his glasses. Mom said you should be here soon, let's go in. After saying that, Xiao Sheng couldn't wait to pull John's hand, hurriedly pushed through the crowd, and ran to the residential area. Cut this part off. A voice came from the female reporter's headset. It should be the editor-in-chief who saw this scene. The appearance and name of the gym owner's children or relatives can be known to outsiders, but it must never be spread from the TV station. John came to the gym for the first time, and he didn't expect it to be so complicated, and there was a front yard and a backyard. The front yard is usually where the gym apprentices stay. They eat and sleep here, and also take care of the important task of protecting the gym. There are several battle venues here, but most of them are used for training, and the right to use them belongs to the apprentices here. The main battle venue is used by challengers when challenging the gym. Of course, there is no rule that the gym owner must personally meet the challenge, and they also select people. When you want to challenge a gym, you must first register your identity information. Rookie trainers and ordinary trainers are assessed by apprentices, while trainers above elite are assessed by gym owners. However, if the gym owner is out for something, the apprentice will still accept the challenge of the trainer. After all, the main responsibility of the gym owner is to be responsible for the safety of the city. Mom, sister, John is here. As soon as the door was opened, Xiao Sheng showed his true face, his eyes fixed on John's poke ball, waiting for John to speak. John looked at him with some amusement. Is it necessary to be so persistent? John, you didn't even tell me you were here. Mitsuko was busy cooking in the kitchen, with a little complaint in her voice. I think she felt guilty for not preparing a hearty lunch in advance. John. Xiaoao ran down from upstairs happily and looked at John with a happy face. John's arrival meant that she could leave home and travel freely. Aunt Mitsuko, Xiaoao, I brought some barbecue. John put the bag on the dining table, and it looked heavy. He bought it from a barbecue restaurant. It was real meat, not artificial. After all, it was his first time to visit, and John couldn't think of what to bring for a while. Finally, he smelled the tempting smell of barbecue and thought it was lunchtime, so it should be a good choice. This 3 pounds of roast beef cost John nearly 3,000 yen of alliance coins. You should know that the price of artificial meat is only about 100 yen per pound, which is directly increased tenfold. Mitsuko complained again, but she was saying that John was spending money recklessly, but this made Xiaoao and Xiao Sheng very happy. It was not easy for them to have such a barbecue. Although Kyun Lee's salary was high, he needed to provide resources for his Pokémon. So Mitsuko lowered the food standard and left Xiaoao and Xiao Sheng a sum of money so that they would not be troubled by financial problems when they became trainers. Where is Mr. Kyun Lee? John asked with a smile, and Mitsuko's voice came from the kitchen. He went out early in the morning and will not come back for lunch. Is that so? John nodded. Although more than 20 days had passed, Kyun Lee was still busy. With the temptation of barbecue, Xiao Sheng no longer obsessed with John's Pokémon. John sometimes couldn't stand Xiao Sheng's obsession, but when he thought of him as Kyun Lee's child, so they could only let him do what he wanted. Xiaoao and Xiao Sheng had the happiest lunch. They drank drinks and ate the barbecue brought by John, but ignored the food that Mitsuko had carefully prepared for lunch. However, Mitsuko did not show any displeasure. Instead, she treated John as the one to pick up food for. John, I didn't ask you last time what Pokémon you have captured during this period. Mitsuko put down her chopsticks and asked curiously, while Xiao Sheng kept nodding. I heard that Mr. Kyun Lee has a greenhouse. Can I go and visit it? There was a flash of excitement in John's eyes. He was very curious about what Pokémon Kyun Lee had. He didn't believe that Kyun Lee's Pokémon were only those of Lazy Man. Although there was a king-level straight bear, he had never seen the King of Leave. Okay, Kyun Lee knew you would make this suggestion. I'll take you there after dinner. And your Pokémon can be placed in the greenhouse. Qunli has told them in advance. Mizuko said with a smile. Sure enough, this is a common problem for trainers, including Xiaosheng, who is not a trainer yet. Okay. Thank you, Aunt Mizuko. John looked at the pile of rice bowls and started to eat them directly. Xiaosheng kept asking him questions, but he didn't have time to answer. Qunli's greenhouse is very large, with rugged rockery, clear pools, lush trees, and everything else. The Pokémon living here are all Qunli and Mizuko's. However, his king-level Pokémon are always carried with him. After all, when performing missions, John said he would do the same. As Mizuko opened the door of the greenhouse and clapped her hands gently, the Pokémon in the greenhouse gathered instantly. Sloth, hyperactive ape, bear, king, shaky spot, hunting swallowtail, etc., all gathered. King was only a gym-level Pokémon, so Qunli didn't bring him with him. Okay, John, release your Pokémon. Xiaosheng ran to King, pushed his glasses up, and said to John. Chapter 73. Okay. John held 6 Pokémon balls in both hands and threw them up. Gyarados, Bankiras, Baby Dragon, Wolfhound, Houndoom, and Toucan all appeared in front of them. You all, get along well with your partners here. John mainly told Gyarados and Bankiras, fearing that they would challenge the King of Leave at will. This greenhouse can't withstand the fight between 2 gym-level Pokémon. Although there are protective measures, the protection inside is not so perfect. Wow! It's Bankiras. Xiaosheng completely ignored the baby dragon beside him, ran straight to Bankiras, and shouted excitedly. Bankiras looked at the little one in front of him, and then turned his head to look at John. After John nodded, it agreed to let Xiaosheng get close to him. John, I remember that when you were on the ship, you only had 2 Pokémon. Mitsuko covered her mouth in surprise, looking at the Pokémon in front of her with disbelief. I captured them all in the wild, and it was also luck. John just wanted to thank nature for the gift. Aaron's death was valuable, otherwise he would not be able to escape the fate of being arrested after meeting the Rocket Trio. His Pokémon might be confiscated by then, and it might be taken away by the bigwigs in the league. Watching Gyarados go into the pool on its own, Wolfhound and Houndoom greeted the Pokémon on the opposite side in a friendly manner, and then found a place to lie down. Toucan flew to the tree and found a place to rest. Baby Dragon was already playing happily with the swaying spot. Bankiras was entangled by Xiaosheng. If John hadn't been staring at it, it might have shot down with a destructive death ray. John, you've been in the wild for so long, aren't you afraid? Xiaoao looked at John with admiration and asked curiously. A Pokémon as big as Banjaras, aren't you afraid when you meet it in the wild? Xiaoao, since you have chosen the path of a trainer, you have to get used to the wild environment. John sat down casually on the ground like Mitsuko, and then said to Xiaoao, tomorrow I will accompany you to buy survival equipment in the wild, and I will teach you some survival skills along the way. Ah! Do we have to camp? Xiaoao was a little worried, but not about John, but about the wild environment. Xiaoao, what are you kidding? Trainers don't camp in the wild, do you still expect to find a homestay every dusk? John said unhappily. He knew Xiaoao's personality, and after really getting in touch with her, he realized how irritating Xiaoao's words could be. Although Xiaoao is sometimes willful, she is cheerful and kind-hearted, and can be considered a good girl. John will not be polite to her, even in front of Qunli and Mitsuko. After all, John is not a slave, and there is no need to please Xiaoao. He is just fulfilling the agreement with Qunli. If possible, he might as well travel by himself, so that he has no scruples no matter what he does. Haha. Of course I know. Xiaoao laughed, not caring about John's complaints at all. Xiaosheng had a lot of fun, and before he knew it, it was dark. The 3 of them spent the whole afternoon in the greenhouse. Mitsuko went to prepare dinner early, and cleaned up a room for John. There are many empty houses in the gym, but they are all in the front yard. The backyard is where the family of the gym owner stays. So, Mitsuko cleaned up a room next to Xiaosheng's room for John as a bedroom. John placed all the Pokémon in the greenhouse and let them move freely. After following Xiaoao and Xiaosheng out, he happened to meet Qunli who had just returned home. Mr. Qunli, are you still busy? Seeing Qunli's slightly tired appearance, John couldn't help but ask curiously. It will be soon. Qunli replied, and then looked at Xiaoao and Xiaosheng gently, with a warm smile on his face. It seems that he doesn't want to talk about work at home or in front of his family. Dad, you don't know, John has captured a Banguilas now. Xiao Sheng looked at Qun Li with excitement, as if he was showing off his Pokémon. Banguilas. Qun Li was slightly startled, and suddenly realized it in his heart. So that's why Daigo fell in love with John. If Banguilas is well cultivated, plus there is a baby dragon, John's future is indeed limitless. The reason why quasi-gods are called quasi-gods is because they are gifted and real. Powerful. The difficulty of impacting the king is much simpler than that of ordinary Pokémon. It was rare for Qun Li to come back at mealtime. Mitsuko defended Qun Li's position as the head of the family and asked him to take John around after eating, while she stayed to do housework. Xiao Sheng was banned from the qualification of activities together this time. Qun Li took John and Xiaoao back to the greenhouse and released the Pokémon he carried with him first. Xiaoao, we will leave in 2 days. You must listen to John in everything, understand? Qun Li changed his usual easygoing expression and his expression was extremely serious at this moment. Xiaoao nodded obediently. She was not stupid. Since she chose the path of becoming a trainer, she must go on firmly even if she didn't like it. John, Xiaoao is in your hands. Qun Li walked in front of John, grabbed his shoulders tightly, and her tone was full of melancholy. Of course, I don't want to make this a deal, John. If you have any questions about Pokémon training in the future, you can ask me. I know, Mr. Qun Li. John nodded solemnly. Qun Li looked at the Pokémon who were already playing together, and a gratified smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. John, do you plan to teleport the Pokémon after the 7th one to the greenhouse? Can you? A hint of surprise flashed in John's eyes. Yes, you can put them in the greenhouse before you have your own teleportation qualification. John was full of joy. This solved the problem of Pokémon storage, and now it seems that they get along pretty well. However, John always has a feeling that he has married into the family. What is this? Pokémon son-in-law? Although Xiaoao looks pretty good, John has no intention of falling in love yet. But it's a bit strange. The relationship between men and women in this world seems to be quite pure. You can often see trainers of men and women traveling together. Even though he was going to travel with Xiaoao now, he didn't have any improper thoughts in his mind. Chapter 74. As the popularity of the Keiho conference continued to rise, various businesses in Chinjua City gathered together and united to prepare for a grand event. After several days of official application, the final location for the event was finally determined. Today's gym was particularly deserted, and the challengers seemed to have gone to join in the fun. Last night, John and the apprentices of Chinjua Gym got along very well. After get off work in the evening, everyone got together. After all, they were all elite trainers, and everyone chatted endlessly, almost one sentence after another, and there was no dull moment. They all participated in the league conference, and then joined the home league and became apprentices of Chinjua Gym. While learning from Qun Li, he also acted as his assistant to ensure that the operation of the gym could go smoothly. Otherwise, it would be difficult for a gym owner to support the gym alone. On the training ground, they also started their own training, almost all of which were general-type Pokémon. John, do you want to fight? Sayori asked, looking at John and taking out the Pokeball first. Xiaoao Xiaosheng, let's go shopping later. John was also a little itchy, so he said to Xiaoao and Xiaosheng. Originally, they agreed to buy some survival items for Xiaoao. Okay, okay. Xiaosheng shouted excitedly. It was rare to see elite trainers fighting. Under normal circumstances, Qun Li would not allow Xiaosheng to engage in Pokémon battles so soon. Sayori, Xiaosheng is here. Don't forget Qun Li's instructions. Naoki came over and whispered in her ear. Judging from this situation, Qun Li should have greeted them a long time ago, but the careless Sayori forgot. She could only wave her hands helplessly, and then suddenly walked over. John, there is a large Pokémon battle in the central square, do you want to go and have a look? Central Square. It seemed that she was going to go shopping nearby, and the place was chosen by Xiaoao herself. Upon hearing that there was a battle, John immediately returned to the greenhouse and brought out Gyarados, Gyarados, and Wolfhound. Xiaosheng and Xiaoao couldn't wait any longer, and immediately urged John to go faster. Xiaosheng wanted to watch the battle, and Xiaoao simply liked shopping, but the two were not contradictory, and they were in the same place. However, the central square was already crowded with people at this time, and John and his friends couldn't even squeeze in. Even the registration channel was lined with hundreds of people. In desperation, John could only take Xiaoao and Xiaosheng to the inside of the mall to make a big purchase before the trip. Xiaoao naturally chose a lot of beautiful but not very practical things. John reminded her, and Xiaoao didn't care and stopped. Then, John stopped giving any opinions. Seeing that Xiaoao seemed to be caught up in a shopping frenzy, John left alone to buy practical things for Pokémon. After a round of shopping, Xiaoao filled in the address and asked the people in the mall to deliver all the things to Qinzhou Gym. When the shopping guide heard that it was Qinzhou Gym, the shopping guide of the mall not only waived the delivery fee, but also gave some extra things that even John had not thought of. For example, mosquito-repellent perfume, raincoats, hiking shoes, and other items, but Xiaoao didn't know. Since I went out to purchase today, I had already agreed with Mitsuko to go out for dinner. Near noon, there were still many people in the square. John had no choice but to choose a restaurant near the square to eat. There happened to be an empty seat by the window. Xiaosheng ran over and immediately occupied it. Through the glass window, you can see the exciting Pokémon duel downstairs. There are a total of 3 battlefields. Now, on one of the battlefields, the fire-type civil war between Nine-Tailed Fox and Chow Chow Pig is being staged. Sister, look, it's Nine-Tailed Fox and Fried Pork. Xiaosheng was instantly attracted by this venue and said to Xiao Yao excitedly. Xiao Yao looked at the Nine-Tailed Fox that kept dodging attacks on the field, and couldn't help but sighed, so elegant. Qian picked up the menu and started ordering. In the past, he would not walk into such a restaurant because the prices of the dishes here are very expensive. However, the situation is different now, and it's harmless to be extravagant occasionally. Although Mitsuko gave Xiao Yao a lot of money, Qiao En would not let Xiao Yao pay for meals. Now he is staying in Qinzhou Gym, and it is estimated that he will have to stay for a few days. After Xiao Yao's birthday, he will start to set off. It's just right that during this period of time, if you don't understand something, you can consult Qun Li. Qiao En acted quickly and chose several expensive meat dishes, paired with iced sour plum soup in summer. This feeling is simply refreshing to the extreme. Waiting when the dishes were served, John also began to watch the lively duel below. Stir-fried pig is one of the initial Pokémon of rookie trainers in the Unova region, and the evolved form of warm pig. Seeing Xiaoao looking at the battle with a puzzled look on her face, John guessed that she probably didn't know the Pokémon on the opposite side. Haha. Xiaoao touched her red headscarf, but Xiaosheng didn't laugh at her. He was concentrating on watching the Pokémon battle. John, you know a lot. Xiaoao found that John, who was 1 year older than her, seemed to be completely different from her. However, she did not like Pokémon very much at the moment, but she did not have such a resistance to the beautiful ones. I just remember it because I like it. Xiaoao, I want to remind you that if you choose the path of a trainer, you should learn more about Pokémon. I know. John was like an older brother, and Xiaoao didn't dare to refute him at all. Unlike Xiaosheng, if Xiaosheng said this, Xiaoao would have already started blood suppression. Learn more about Pokémon. Xiaoao's mouth moved, and she said in a voice that only she could hear. John, don't you want to compete? Until Ninetales defeated Cheokeazu, Xiaosheng turned around and looked at John with excitement. There are too many people, I don't know how long I have to wait. John didn't know what prizes the winner would get, but just the long wait made him back out. John should be able to win if he goes on stage. In Xiaoao's cognitive world, the terrifying appearance of Gyarados and Bangiris should be terrifyingly strong. Ha ha ha. Before John could speak, several young people with red, orange, yellow, and green hair at the next table laughed unscrupulously. Winning? Just with this young boy? Aren't you afraid of getting your tongue tangled when you brag? John's face darkened instantly, but Xiaoao stood up and looked at them with an unhappy face. Please speak respectfully. Chapter 75. Please speak with respect. The yellow-haired man at the next table imitated Xiaoao's movements with a playful look on his face, and repeated it in a weird tone imitating her. Ha ha ha. The remaining few people laughed so hard that they fell forward and backward, and the harsh laughter sounded one after another in the restaurant, instantly attracting everyone's attention. Xiaoao felt the gazes of the crowd, and her face immediately turned as red as a ripe apple. From childhood to adulthood, she had never experienced such a thing, and she was so angry that she was at a loss. But Xiaosheng was different. You are not allowed to bully my sister. Although he was suppressed by Xiao Ao all day, when he saw his sister being teased by a few gangsters, Xiao Sheng didn't even care about watching the Pokémon battle, and immediately jumped down from his seat and ran towards a few people with his teeth and claws bared. Little brother, you are still a little naive to learn to fight from others. The red-haired man sitting at the edge raised his hand carelessly, gently blocked Xiao Sheng's head, and did not forget to mock him a few words. However, he did not use much force, but just pushed Xiao Sheng away. After all, if it was known that he bullied a child, he would lose face. But even so, Xiao Sheng still waved his fists angrily, but he could only stand there, unable to get close to them. John's face was so gloomy that it seemed that water could drip out. Xiao Ao and Xiao Sheng came out with him. If he was bullied like this and he was still indifferent, how could he have the face to go back to Jinzhou Gym? Not to mention seeing Qunli and Mitsuko again. He stepped on the table without any hesitation, and jumped in front of the red-haired man like a nimble cheetah, holding the red-haired man's hand tightly. Fortunately, he grew up doing hard labor, and his whole body was full of endless strength. Even picking up the nearly 80-pound baby dragon was easy. He was not afraid of a small thug who was strong on the outside but weak on the inside. If he hadn't been afraid of releasing the Pokémon and causing panic, he would have thrown the Pokeball without hesitation. The waiter in the restaurant saw John's action and wanted to stop him anxiously. After all, they knew those gangsters and they were all troublemakers. But it was too late. John didn't bother to stop them with his mouth. He stretched out his strong left hand and grabbed the red-haired man's arm like a clamp, then pulled it back violently. A pig-killing scream came out of the red-haired man's mouth. Ah! It hurts, my hand is going to break. After losing the resistance of the red-haired man, Xiao Sheng's balance was a little out of control. Fortunately, John was quick-witted and stretched out his other hand to hold him up and prevent him from falling. Sir, please stop. At this moment, the waiter in the restaurant also rushed over and shouted at John anxiously. Apologize. John said coldly, the strength in his hands was still increasing, and the red-haired guy could feel that his arm was about to be crushed. Kill this man. The green-haired guy who looked like the boss here finally reacted, and immediately showed a fierce expression and ordered, and did not forget to pick up a ceramic bowl in his hand and use it as a weapon to hit John. John, be careful. Xiao Ao shouted anxiously, and then quickly called home, Mom, we are being bullied. John immediately pulled the red-haired guy in front of him, and the green-haired bowl instantly hit the red-haired guy. Call the police quickly, murder. The red-haired guy screamed in pain and kept calling for help, but someone in the restaurant had already called the police. A few people from the spectators also stood up to persuade them to stop fighting. They saw the process of the incident clearly, but it was difficult to judge who was right and who was wrong for a while. Although it was this group of hooligans who provoked the incident, it was indeed Xiao Sheng who started it first. Who do you think you are? Get out of here. If the gangsters compromised so easily, they would not be gangsters. After receiving the alarm, the police officers in charge of public security in the central square quickly sent a few people to the place where the caller said. Fighting is not a big deal here. This is a world that advocates the use of force. It's just that a large-scale event is going on downstairs to prevent the situation from further escalating. When they arrived, the scene was already in chaos. Several people who tried to persuade the fight also joined the battle and denounced the gangsters. Afterwards, after the gangsters threw out their Pokémon, John also threw out the wolfhound, but was immediately stopped by a deafening roar. Stop it, fighting, releasing Pokémon in public, what do you think this place is, Fang? 4 tall and serious police officers stood at the door, followed by 4 Katy dogs, which shocked everyone present. John loosened his hand holding the red hair, and Xiao Sheng was pulled behind Xiao Ao. The gangsters saw this and showed a trace of fear on their faces, but still said stubbornly. Officer, they started it first. The police officer snorted coldly, I don't care who started it first, you can't escape punishment for making trouble in public. At this time, the restaurant manager hurried over and explained the incident to the police officer. After listening, the police officer looked even uglier, you guys, come back to the police station with me. The gangsters began to argue, Officer, we were just joking, it's not that serious. Jokes? How can you joke like this? The police officer shouted angrily, take them all away. John explained to the policeman, Officer, it was indeed them who spoke rudely first and bullied my companion. The policeman looked at John and said, no matter what, fighting is not the right way to solve the problem. You also come with me to make a statement. Wait. Another figure walked in from the door. It was Miss Junsha, and Kyun-Li was waiting downstairs. Kyun-Li had just received a call from Mitsuko, saying that Xiao Ao and Xiao Sheng were bullied while eating in the restaurant. Kyun-Li immediately rushed out of the Alliance office area in a rage. It happened that he met Miss Junsha. After learning about it, Miss Junsha also went with Kyun-Li. The gym owner who protects the safety of the city, his family was bullied in the city. If this spreads out, the impact is too bad. You know why the Orange Gym needs Kyun-Li, who is known as the #1 person under the king, to protect it. This place is surrounded by the Orange Forest. Every day, countless trainers shuttle through it. If the wild Pokémon population inside is annoyed, the accident caused must be solved by a powerful trainer. John, why is it you again? After seeing the people inside clearly, Miss Junsha said unhappily. She still remembers the trainer who was willing to bail him out in the Orange Gym.